Fam, if is there anything that really burns my ass more than anything, it's seeing the elitist oligarchic ruling class keeps the people divided. And this is just off the RJ Today fam, which I have explained to you, like, being a newspaper guy, like your friend Fidel, men of integrity who understand and look at the propaganda. We look at the playbooks. We do our homework, fam. Usually it's just a lot of propaganda passed on from the AP, but this one today is from the Las Vegas Review Journal that made the front cover. Voting security in place. Voting security in place, fam. And I think I explained to you, because I'm going again to the American Project's election integrity seminar this weekend over in your old neck of the woods, O-Town. What up, Mickey? What up, Goofy? And I'll often have to speak against the fact that they want to start putting cameras on drop boxes, that they want to have Dropbox parties to keep an eye on that stuff, to hopefully have some form of integrity, because there's no chain of custody. As we know, we don't have fair elections. But it really completes the task of the ruling class, fam, and that is to keep us divided. And now they have you spying on their neighbors. So now the argument is it's a bunch of, we have security in place. We're going to protect the worker, fam. Remember Cory Booker crying about it? People can't do their jobs without getting threatened. There's this whole thing right now where they're making it look like the Trumper, the MAGA guy, the domestic terrorist, is bullying the election workers. So now we're going to protect them. And meanwhile, what are they doing? Let's start spying on our neighbors. Let's start watching these drop boxes, fam. They got the people divided. And it burns my ass.
Fam, this is an AM wake up. I don't need to talk about your bowel movements. I don't need to hear about.
Wait. What are you bringing into play here?
That is part of it. Fam, we have serious things to discuss here. Fam, seriously? Come on.
Fam, why did you
need to get it out of your system in the morning, earlier morning, because it's still morning.
The voting thing is, fam, is a convo couch thing, because you understand this too.
Of course it is. But did you expect them to do anything else? Really?
Look, I expected them to keep the rules in play, because both Republicans and Democrats, especially established ones, benefit from the rules that are in play. You know what I'm saying?
No, they don't. They don't. No, they don't. They
in their own territory.
Well, yes. They don't benefit for having fair elections, is what I'm saying. They don't benefit from having fair elections.
The establishment does. They get the people in that they want to get in. That's why they're so late nowadays. Yeah. That's why they avoid. Listen, they wheeled out Fetterman yesterday for this freaking debate against Oz. I felt bad for the guy, but Katie Hobbs won't even debate Kerry. Like, she won't go near her. And that's what they can do. Why? Because they have this election system in play, which they can dole out who they want to dole out when they want to dole out. And the establishment goes along with it. That's why the Mitch McConnells and the Lindsey Grahams are all quiet with the shit, because they're going to benefit from their contractors that they have in play so that they can have their elections solidified.
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to pin people against each other. I expected them to try to shame people by saying, this is the big lie. You don't have proof. Where's your proof? We want to do this for inclusivity. We want to make sure there's Dropbox so everybody can vote. We want to get extra time so we have mass participation. But I didn't think that they would say, we have security in place because your life is threatened and in danger by a bunch of MAGA folk, and telling MAGA folk to go spy on drop boxes. I didn't expect that.
How did you not expect that? This is what they've been doing for the last 2 years, increasingly. Fam, sometimes I swear, I think you're too good for this world sometimes. You know? It just tugs my heartstrings. My cold heart. It just tugs my heartstrings that you have such faith still. And I'm not Steve, I'm not Steve, but it's still, I'm still I think I'm becoming Steve.
Steve, your heart
every single month, every single minute. And you know what? At this point, looking at what's going on with the midterm elections right now, is a joke. I mean, it's a complete joke compared to what's going on in the international scheme, because we are facing potential nuclear war right now, and the fucking U.S. American progressives are still surprised that Bernie Sanders has let them down again. I mean, it's kind of right now, being here, and seeing what's like the news and what's going on here on this side of town, and then seeing like progressives still crying about the same thing, it's really jarring to me, and
Mhm.
I just can't comprehend for the life of me. Y'all have fun with your midterm theatrical production of what an election is supposed to be. And everybody else is just going to prepare for nuclear fallout, because that's what the United States and NATO are pushing. And we're going to go over that today. It's really bad.
Did you happen to get first of all, can you hear me? Am I loud enough?
Yeah,
Okay. Did you
you're
happen
always low.
Did you have to
Yes, I
take
sent
the
the link.
opportunity and you have to take the opportunity to take a shot, take a little side swipe at me? I'm
No,
always
it's not a side
I'm
swipe.
always
I'm telling
entertaining.
you.
So, my question is, did we get your favorite
I,
politician outside of Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren? Did we get her shit in there? Okay,
yeah,
good, because we
yeah,
have to. I
yeah.
knew you would get up on that stuff. So, do you
She
want to go?
stopped being my favorite politician in 2015, fam. Like, she wasn't even my favorite politician. She was somebody that I was like, well, I support. She's like better than everybody else compared to Bernie. You know, we wanted her to be Bernie's VP, remember?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
all did.
we did.
At that point. And then, when she did what she did, that's when she was persona non grata, and it was all about Tulsi
Yeah,
after that. And that seems like, literally, it seems like centuries ago at
it
this point.
seems like a long, long time ago. Guys, I want to put it out there real quick. If you want to send something on in, we just got a lovely donation. The morning show did. We had some nice gifts. You can send it to 10120 Southeastern Avenue. Number 228 is the suite, and it's in Henderson, Nevada, 89052. Friendly Brilliant sent a little love. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. We love you. Go check out the Gazette. My good friend Ruth, all her work out there. Always been a long time supporter.
Oh,
We appreciate it. But if
Ruth.
anybody wants to send anything right there, you see it streaming right on the bottom. Of course, you go to our Patreon. You can go become a Rockfin member. We love our Rockfin members. Guys, thank you so much for renewing your subscriptions. 10120 Southeastern Avenue, number 228. That's in Henderson, Nevada, 89052. And of course, we still always have our Give Send Goes up. This one is still going right now. GiveSendGo.com. The Combo Couch Brazil, still recuperating from that trip. Amazing trip, fam, because I'm going to get to speak about it this weekend with a bunch of patriots or MAGA folk or whatever you want to call them. But there a lot of Trump people are now involved inside election integrity after what happened in 2020. They want to learn everything about it. So they've gone to the bullpen, and they've let international election observers like ourselves be a part of this whole situation, because we can present the solutions that they are looking for and show them that it really can work in one day of voting, just like we witnessed in Nicaragua, Honduras, Peru, Colombia, Brazil. It could be done, and they can have results that night. So we are into play now, fam, right now. What do you want to do as far as the folder? Do you want to just jump right into a section, or do you want to
Supposedly in 2 minutes, she'll be here. So we have a guest. We're going to talk about the Iranian protests. So I will just give you, since you guys are TCC fam, tomorrow there should be, I'll release a package on how the Canadian Freedom Convoy, remember when Trudeau issued this national state of emergency to try to quell the protests, and Chrystia Freeland froze everybody's bank accounts, and they had said that there was influence from the US, but mainly, guess who they blamed? Putin.
Yeah.
And said that it was a Russian influenced protest, a bunch of Nazis. And while, of course, Canada continued to support the Azov through funding, it came out that there's an inquiry right now, and the inquiry basically exposed that there was never a need to consider these protests a national security threat, and basically just debunk their entire BS. And this is from the Canadian Intelligence Service, and it completely contradicts what they said at that time. So I go over that in my next package. So you guys should look out for that on our Tizzle tomorrow or today.
Steve gets mad when I do the Tizzle thing. Guys, do us a favor. Get on over to Rockfin. We only got 19 people over there. Do us a favor. Share that out there, guys. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Facebook. Share it wherever you share it. If you got a Getter or a Parler, get it out there too. If you do it by email, do it. If you do it by horse and buggy, let the people know the combo couch is coming. The combo couch is coming. We are here, in fact. So please come check it out. While we are waiting for our guest, fam, I figured I would go really quick to the bullpen and pick up put something out there. I don't know if you saw this the other day. I brought to the table. Hotchel yesterday, Kathy Hotchel said that she would do it all over again and she'd do it the same way. In other words, she wouldn't care about the mandates. In fact, that she's losing a case in New York right now where a judge has said that they have to issue back the jobs of the 1,700 healthcare workers and firefighters that they made quit due to mandates. They have to give them their job with their retro pay. She doesn't care. She said she would do it all over again. She has no qualms about it. So what I want to pull up real quick and check this out, guys, if you haven't got to get the chance. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to grab this really quickly. Inside Alberta, they have a new premier, fam. Premier being somebody who runs, that part of their country. Let me put it in here real quick. And Rebel News, which is the outlet that Jeremy Lafredo worked for, which we got to get him back on the show. And it's also Viva Fry's network. They went and they got a question with one of the premiers. They went combo couch style, fam. They went just, let's go there and get a microphone in front of these people and see what they have to say. Let me bring this on in. And I'm going to show you guys right here. Check this out. So this is from the Alberta Premier. Apologize to the unvaccinated citizens, considers dropping all lockdown prosecutions. In other words, they ask her, what about all these prosecutions? Can you drop them? She says, I don't want to comment just yet. I have to figure out what's going on, but she's considered doing that. And also she apologized, fam. And she said, come back. I'll give you your job. Here, let me show you this. Check this out here. I'm going to mute us on up. Our guest should be here very shortly. Combo Couch, guys. Hit the like button, hit the share button. You know what to do. Fiorella live from Moscow. Pasta live, the funny, good-looking one from Vegas.
Is it not playing? It's not playing. Okay. Doesn't look like it's playing. Fam, you're muted. You're muted.
Guys, I'm coming with it right now. I'm sorry. It's just giving me difficulties. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. Here we go. No, it's not doing it. Jesus Christ. Never mind. Here she is.
Okay.
So while she's coming in.
Alrighty. Okay, she's muted.
Our guest is coming on in. Hey, how you doing?
Okay, hold on.
I'm going to add her and just tell her to unmute.
Can you unmute yourself? You're muted. You're muted.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Is it good?
How are you?
Hi.
I'm good. I'm so sorry. So sorry about the delay.
Oh, you're okay. Marzieh Hashimi. Am I saying that correctly? Okay.
That's correct. Marzieh Hashimi.
Marzieh Hashimi. Okay. Welcome to the show. I've been wanting to talk about this issue for a while now because we on the West get only a certain narrative. And being, I'm in Moscow, but having, of course, been privy to Western news outlets, we get a certain narrative. So I just wanted to ask you some questions as somebody that's
Right.
familiar. Now,
Sure.
guys, just so you all know,
Yeah.
this is Marzie. She's the host of Hidden Files on Press TV, is a documentary filmmaker and an analyst. So we've been hearing about these brave women fighting unjust treatment of in Iran, but others are saying that these are US backed protests and that these are being weaponized by the West to push for regime change. So my question to you is, who's behind these protests and to what effect?
All right. Well, thanks for having me. First of all, I would say that there were protests, I think natural, homegrown protests. The one problem that we have in Iran is that whenever there are people, different things that happen in any society that people want to protest. Unfortunately, in Iran, when they want to protest, others take control of it or infiltrate it or use it. And this time, not indifferent from many other times in some ways. But yeah, I would say that, of course, Iranians were upset when they first heard the story that came out about Masa Amini, especially the way they heard the story saying that this young woman had been picked up and then she had been murdered. I mean, these were some of the words that was used by especially Western media. This is a young society. We have a lot of young people that were quite emotional with it, as many Iranians were upset. They wanted to know exactly what had happened. But the difference is that when they go out and want to protest and others get involved, it immediately becomes something much wider than protests. And it becomes riots and it's, just becomes a crazy situation. Overall, Iran, the society is a very stable and security is just a given for us, I guess. So when these things happen, it really, really affects the people. Um, what I say to people is this. Let's say, for example, for the sake of argument, that this was a bad cop. We have this situation, these things happen everywhere, that you could have a bad cop that does something wrong. Really, if a cop kills someone, for the sake of argument, the other side of the world, everywhere, all of a sudden, they're going to react in this kind of way. I mean, I'm American, right? I mean, the Americans are killed regularly. I can point to Jalen Walker, who was shot 90 times, 60 bullets hitting him, and he was killed for a traffic incident. So this happens. I'm saying, just for the sake of argument, even if it was a bad cop, which it doesn't seem that even is the case. The point is that when something happens, the first thing you have to wait for is an investigation. Exactly what is it about? After the coroner's office, they investigated, and many independent doctors, because they tried to put out that this is, regime and putting out these false information. Some of the top doctors and scientists in the country specifically worked on this case as far as the autopsy and said that there was nothing, no harm or no injury to the brain as far as been inflicted by anyone. So there was a lot of different things that came out in the autopsy report. They didn't wait for the autopsy. We saw media just going crazy with it, with this situation. One Iranian woman, really that important for them? When so many people are dying all over the world, obviously this is a lot more than just talking about a young Iranian woman who has been killed or who died. As we heard, we started off hearing about hijab and then immediately regime change after that they're talking about. And today we had a terrorist incident. Today we had a terrorist incident. Iran is a safe country. We don't have many terrorist incidents, but it just happened on its 40th day after this woman died, that it's today. And it's to create ultimately like a second Syria. They want civil war. And they want regime change. I have no doubt about that. I've seen it a lot. Of course, not in this way, the way it has been coordinated and from so many different angles.
Yeah. I have some questions, obviously, about culture in Iran, which I think a lot of people in the United States, they just don't understand. I mean, they don't know about Iran. I remember seeing a video from an old school guy, like when he went to Iran himself and just going around and talking to people. It's like, wow, this is a really lovely, friendly culture, and it seems very, very safe. But it's I think it's par for the course that the United States would try to come in and co-opt any type of movement whatsoever. Any type of protest, they would come in there. I would almost think that sometimes the Iranian government might go, okay, well, let's use this to our advantage. The fact that the United States are coming in, these NGOs, they're all pushing for regime change. We could use that as a reason to kind of quell these protests that are in place. Now, if you look at the last Iranian election, very, very low participation. And I get the sense that there's a lot of youth within Iran that might be tired and fed up with the current government there. That there is argument that it was an overreaching theocracy to get the Shah out years ago, and it's still in place there. Where does the youth of Iran stand with the government at the end of the day? Are they still nationalists to the point where, like, okay, we don't like this government, but we're going to handle it ourselves. We don't want the West in here. Or are they just like, just get rid of this theocracy and let the youth take the reins? Somewhat what we got over here in the States.
Right. I think there's a whole range. When we talk about the youth in Iran, there's a whole range of, as far as reaction. There are the youth who, let me just say, we have to understand that it's 43 years since the revolution in Iran. From the very beginning, from a media perspective, I'm, again, born and educated in the States, journalism major. I remember from the beginning, after the revolution, some of the first things that were being said, like in the States, was that this revolution would not last. It was Ayatollah Khomeini is dying. It was so many things. There was always this negative perspective in dealing with Iran and the way that the news was set. So, and the same thing inside of the country, especially after we look at when media became satellite television, first of all, and now not only satellite TV, but of course social media. It has been constant Iranophobia, if you want to say, negative, very negatively showing Iran. And of course, the young people here, like the young people everywhere else, they're looking at the same media. They're seeing the same pictures or videos from Instagram, even though they live here themselves. But when you are told that, oh my God, what a terrible situation you have, what an awful life you have, God, you could be this country, that country, and you could be so free, and you could just whatever. And they're young. A lot of them buy into that. Not all, but some, because they're constantly working on them. And the reality is that it's a lie. I'm an American. I live in Iran. I've been in Iran for years now. Listen, as far as the opportunity that they have, as far as their lifestyles, the support, the family support these young people have, their lifestyle as far as going out with their friends and coffee shops and all the other things. But if you're told or if you're shown by some Hollywood movie that really, what an awful life you have, sometimes you buy into it. So we do have that group that buy into it, and they really believe, like, oh my God, I'm not free. If you ask them, okay, what aren't you free to do exactly? What does that mean? Freedom. Okay. So we have this vague, like, oh, freedom or whatever, that they think that, oh my God, the whole world is going to open if I just step foot on whatever country. So we have that group. We also have a group of young people who are extremely supportive of the Islamic Revolution. And, but then we have a group that are probably somewhere caught in between.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just, like many societies. So, that's the reality. But the thing is that, listen, with the way the media and the US is behind this and adding fuel to the flame. That's what they want to do. It's like pouring kerosene on it, right? And we
Yeah.
see it in so many ways from the beginning of it. Again, the verbiage, the wording, the way it was used, and talking about this murder. And then we've seen so many false stories talking about this girl has been killed, this one's been killed, by regime forces. And then we've seen the reality that that was not the case. They've gone and talked to families. There have been some kids who have died from some natural circumstances, some who were not even dead and nothing had happened to them, but their identity had been created with these, Saudi-backed entities that are just creating these unbelievable stories. But it's just trying to add fuel to the flame. So this is it. It's playing with the emotions of the young people. Let me tell you, I can tell you, a few years ago, we had some Americans had come here for a seminar. And I remember this one woman, she asked me, she said, so where are the police here? Where are she felt that, we should have armed guards everywhere, whatever. And I said, there are no armed guards. Of course, there are police or whatever, but there are no armed guards on the street in Tehran or Iran. And she says, come on, there has to be. And I said, we'll drive throughout the city. And we went to different places. And that was the reality, right? Whereas now, of course, from a security perspective, it's somewhat different this last month and a half because of what is happening. I can't reiterate enough to people the overall sense of security that people usually have in the society. And I'm talking about women, young women, going out, they're on the street alone, 11 o'clock at night, whatever, walking. It's a very, very different society. I'm talking in the summers, people heading to the park at midnight, 1 a.m. It's a very safe society.
Iran, right? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You cut out there for a second. We lost you.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, your internet.
See me?
Yeah, you're.
No.
Can you hear me?
Not seeing you.
Now we can.
You're back. Okay. If you could just repeat the last couple sentences you were saying.
Yeah. I can hear you guys. Let me see what I can do. What about now?
That's good.
Yeah. That's better.
Can you see me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Are we losing her again?
What?
You know what? If you have to take the video off for a second, you can.
Yeah.
If you just want to finish up your thought.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you just want to finish up your thought.
Okay. I don't know what you heard. So yeah,
well,
I don't know
okay.
where you heard to. So
that,
you tell me.
At midnight at the park, you can go. It's a very safe society. Someone with Fiorella was telling us about, Moscow, the way it's very safe to kind of go outside, where, we have this misconception from the West that it's just a dangerous area. So.
Yeah. So I guess my question to you is, what exactly is the issue? Because in the West,
Right,
you hear,
definitely.
these women.
It's not something that you're worried. I mean, your kids are coming home, whatever, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. You're not really worried about their safety overall. This is my point. So when this whole situation is created, to think that, first of all, they try to depict Iran as a very backward society, and it's anything but that. And most people, when they come here, I mean, they're quite surprised and quite impressed at this modern society. So there has been the way that it has been depicted for at least 4 decades now. Yes, it affects the way the public throughout the world may see it, and sometimes even our young people here. The reality is very, very different. But again, yes, they are trying their best to cause divisions. At the end of the day, I can tell you, I mean, I'm here. As far as demonstrations, we've had demonstrations, uh, definitely not the way that they are showing it, as if the whole country is on fire. It is not like that. Everyone's living their lives. We have had situations happen at some of the universities, and this is constantly being incited. But overall, I can tell you that the country's safe. There's no revolution that they're saying, the revolution 2022. I don't know where they're reporting from. Um, and and perhaps I have to say, perhaps this will actually um, make some improvements. I mean, it's unfortunate what has happened. Not only that, security people's country today, seeing terrorist attacks. But I'm hoping at the end of the day that it can make everyone more aware and understand the reality. Whatever differences Iranians may have, and of course, like other people, they have their differences. I think it's important for them to realize that um, working together is the way to go forward. It is not the United States, the UK, Saudi Arabia, France, whichever one you're talking about, they don't care more about Iran than the Iranians who are living here. That's the reality that they have been after regime change for 43 years now, and they will continue in so many different ways. It's just a matter of people being aware of what is going on, and hopefully, it would actually end up bringing people closer together.
Okay, great. And just like as a final note for me, I just wanted to ask if do you think that there's anything to do that this sort of attention to women's rights in Iran has anything to do with the fact that Iran has cemented itself as an ally of Russia, and there's this conflict right now, obviously Russia and Ukraine, the proxy war the US and NATO are waging on Russia via Ukraine. Do you think this that Iran's sort of cooperation and relationship with Russia is also a part of this?
Well, of course, 100%. I mean, we know that there's a power shift. The power is shifting from the West to the East. And with the solidarity, with the cooperation we see between Russia and Iran, or Russia and China and Iran, um, it's big. It's a big blow to the United States. Yes, I see it as a part. And we see, this is a thing that we talk about. All of a sudden, we have them showing that they care, and all these international agencies and even the UN are human rights entities, and like, oh my God, these poor people. But again, if we're talking about Russia, we saw the 8 years in Donbass and that situation, and no one was crying out for those people. And so this is the thing: pick and choose what you want to focus on. And the reality is that this is the new reality for them. There is a switch. The power is transitioning. There's nothing that they can do, but but they will do their best to disrupt and cause as much chaos as they possibly can. But at the end of the day, really, we're looking at a totally different dynamic. We're entering a very, very different world. It's no longer that unilateral um, uh, perspective that whatever the US wanted to do, they could do, and the hell with the rest of the world. And that's what's very difficult for them to deal with.
Mhm. You had mentioned earlier too, as well, like, the thought of freedom, like the talking about freedom, kind of pushing that on the youth and stuff. Like, United States might only have two or three, media companies, but you have a choice of 37 bagels here. That is freedom. Let me tell you that much. Um, Really quickly, last question I have: are women actually forced to wear the hijab in Iran? And if so, what is their perspective? Do they really mind? I mean, because that's something they like to tug at the heart
Right,
of Americans. Having a conversation the other day, you see what's going on in
right,
Iran, don't you? I said, yeah, but my
right.
friend, we've tried to coup them so many times. We removed Mossadegh, their leader. It was one of the CIA's first coups, and regime change. This is declassified information, my friend. You can read it. Yeah, but they're awful to women. They make women wear the hijab out there. This is terrible. I'm like, well, have you heard that from any Iranian people, or have you just heard that from our mainstream media? What are your thoughts on that? Are women actually forced to wear the hijab in Iran? And do
Well,
they mind?
you may hear it. Sure.
Sorry, good.
Right. Well, you may hear it from some Iranians too. You're coming in and out, but from what I understood, what you said, listen, um, Iran is an Islamic country, yes, and in Iran, first of all, about people talking about the oppression of Iranian women, let me say that as far as women that I've met around the world, I think Iranians must be some of the least oppressed ever. Iranians are quite outspoken. Iranian women are quite outspoken and very much in control of so many aspects of life, whether at home or in the office many times. So that's number one. Iranian women are not really going to take a whole lot. We're talking about hijab. We're talking about, yes, a scarf. A scarf was what was required. And actually, a lot of them had been wearing it on their necks or whatever. I think every country has certain laws that it's the law. But the majority, I mean, if you look at, there are different segments of society. If you have Northern Tehran is the wealthiest part of the country. I would say this is where you would see more women that are not interested in hijab, and they haven't really been wearing hijab. Um, this isn't even about hijab. It is not about hijab. You don't even hear hardly them talking about that now. It's all about regime change. We're talking, and at first they were talking about like the missiles and the leader of the revolution actually had said, if it's not the missiles, it will be something else. They'll talk about human rights because the goal is something else, and that's what it is. This is the game that is used. You use whatever excuse you can. Okay, so for Iran, because it's an Islamic republic and because they have certain laws, they're going to use that excuse. The bottom line is that Iranian women are not oppressed. I mean, that's the bottom line. Iranian women have opportunity. When you're talking about more than 60% of the university students are females, I mean, come on. if they're oppressed, I mean, come on, really? They're in all sectors of the society. So, what is that? So, a piece of cloth all of a sudden means oppression? It's way more than that. And the bottom line is that they want to bring down the Islamic Republic. That's the bottom line. It's about regime change.
Gotcha.
Well, Marie, thank you so much for coming on here and giving us your thoughts. I appreciate your perspective. And, we wish you best of luck at Press TV. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And all my best to you guys at RT.
Thanks.
Family.
Great. All right. So let's Fam, sorry about her internet. I think you got the gist. So I will have another guest on next week, I believe, on Iran, because I figure we need to have more guests on because a lot of people are getting this wrong, I think. And I understand people's opinions on how we see in the West as women advancing, but not just in Iran, in Nicaragua, and in Latin America, what they consider the advancement of women is completely different than what liberals in the United States consider the advancement of women. They're conservative on abortion. They're not, they're religious. They're not there on the LGBTQ issues, but they pay women the same in Nicaragua. Women have a lot of say into what goes on. So these are certain differences that just because they're not the same as what the West has been used to doesn't mean that women are oppressed. And also, by the way, she's right. I mean, is it really, does the United States care about oppressed women? Joe Biden is president. Um, enough said. Joe Biden is president. I
Yeah.
don't know what to tell you. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Guys, Aram left a beautiful tip over on the Rockfin. Aram, thank you so much. Always so good.
Thank
You
you,
are
Aram.
always so good to us. Thank you so much, guys. You can do us a favor. Hit the like button, hit the share button. We have under 200 people on the YouTubes. You know, I have some Iranian people on. Forget about it. You know, that shit's going to be retracted right off the jump. So anyways,
Let's get some more people, like, share, and all that good stuff on Rockfin and YouTube. Fam, go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's okay. Fam, did you okay, here we go. So let's get into this next section over here, guys. Please do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button. There's 41 people over on Rockfin. We need more people on Rockfin, about 15 people over on Rumble. That's awesome. Just under 200 people on the YouTubes. Do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button. We have another guest coming with us in about a half hour, a little bit less than a half hour, about 23 minutes. We're going to have Mark Sloboda on to talk about this dirty, dirty bomb. So, fam, do you want to go into the dirty bomb section so we can go right into Mark? And then we'll go back to the retracted letter from the
dirty bomb section is going to be rather quickly.
okay.
But I can go ahead and start on it if you want. Let's just go ahead and do that. So, yeah. So basically, the Russia is what's happening right now, and why I said what I said in the beginning about the elections in the US is because what's going on right now is really escalating everything, right? So we have the Pentagon was informed by Russia that Russia notified them of their plan to conduct annual exercises with its nuclear deterrence forces amid NATO's ongoing steadfast new nuclear drills. And they said this Air Force Brigadier General Patrick Ryder said the U.S. was notified, and as we've highlighted before, this is a routine annual exercise by Russia. And they even said that Russia is complying with its arms control obligations and its transparency commitments to make those notifications. So that's what's been going on, but I want to lay out exactly this entire thread of updates because it's important for us to really look at this right now. And if you can just pull up the thread, fam, I'll go over it.
Gotcha, fam.
Okay. So today, Vladimir Putin said a couple things. So did General Shoigu. And I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of
thread you want, right?
Yeah. A little bit of a breakdown. So Russia's conducting nuclear strikes, on this military training ground. And Russia has asserted, both by Putin and other high-level officials like Shoigu and Dmitry Polyansky, that they have proof of a dirty bomb plot by Ukraine, which would just entail Ukraine to basically say that Russia plant a dirty bomb, so Russia retaliates, and then so they can retaliate against Russia. So Putin said that Ukraine has become hold on. I was the first one. Putin said that Ukraine has become an instrument of U.S. foreign policy and is used as a battering ram against Russia. And that Ukraine has effectively, because of all of this, lost its sovereignty. I think we can argue that Ukraine lost its sovereignty in 2014 when the United States interjected itself and deposed of their democratically elected leader, Yanukovych, and then pretty much installed this sort of puppet government that's been there. And now Zelensky, of course, is the ultimate puppet. So, the next one the Minister of Defense, Sergei Shoigu, said that the training is being conducted to deliver a massive nuclear strike in response to an enemy nuclear strike. And this is the training that's going under Vladimir Putin. So basically, Shoigu saying, we're practicing what would happen if there was a massive nuclear strike at us. This is how we would respond. And so they did these intercontinental and cruise missiles. They launched them. They were testing how they would respond, and apparently everything was targeted within the framework of the exercises was hit. So they were able to conduct everything pretty well, according to them. And they also were able to launch nuclear submarines, mobile missile systems, and long-range aircraft. So they were able to practice this. And Putin stated that Ukraine has become a testing ground for biological experience, and its threat is equal in scale to ISIS. So Putin was basically saying that Ukraine has become this terrorist state that has these radical extremists, right, like the Azov Battalion, and that it's very similar to how the US used ISIS before. So that's what Putin is saying. Putin also reiterated again about the dirty bomb plan. And unfortunately, Putin said that the potential in the world for conflict is very high at this point, and that the world is becoming multipolar, but some are trying to preserve their, quote, tottering hegemony. And that's what he said.
Tottering.
And he talked about the Nord Stream pipelines and how that's actually destroying the European infrastructure, energy infrastructure, which is why you guys are seeing all these protests and against NATO and against sanctions, especially in France. And that's essentially why, because it's destroying Europe's energy infrastructure. Who's going to suffer? The people of Europe are going to suffer the most. And this is what he says too on the next one. He says, this caused a huge damage to the European economy. It's going to make life worse for millions of people. And that's essentially what I think a lot of people are protesting, and why so many people in the United States should be at least on alert. Now, he talked about the color revolution thing. We just got done talking about Iran and the push for regime change. Well, he says that there are attempts to implement the scenario of color revolutions, and that these are continuing, and these conflicts are instigated in the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States. What is that? Azerbaijan, all the Caucasus regions, right? These are the regions that the 2019 RAND document basically said would be exploited to create this conflict in order to destabilize Russia. Well, they're doing it right now, and this is just yet another proof. And ISIS, Putin says that ISIS is trying to infiltrate these Commonwealth of Independent States.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't they, fam? They want to keep those places unstable as can be. You're going to send your goons in there, and that's the United States goons. ISIS, Al-Qaeda. We fund the craziest of the craziest. Azov Battalion. Of course, they want them in there. Of course, Putin is very within his frame to say that, because he's witnessed this shit all the time. He's witnessed the United States and the West funding his own enemies back in the days, Chechens, when he brought it to George W. Bush Jr. And I mean, it's just, it's par for the course. It's their playbook, fam.
It is their playbook. They always go to extremists. In this case, ISIS in the Caucasus regions, and also, obviously, the Azov in Ukraine. And so there was a video conference between Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu and the Minister of Defense of the People's Republic of China today, and who is Colonel General Wei Fengye, and they discussed Ukraine, and Shoigu addressed the provocations by Ukraine to use a dirty bomb. So China and Russia are talking about this dirty bomb scenario. That's a huge deal. And Dmitry Polyansky pretty much answered some questions from the media, from TASS, and said that they asked for an AOB on the possibility of creation of a dirty bomb in Ukraine by Ukrainian authorities, and they think it's a serious threat. They said that Ukraine has the capacity and all the reasons to do this. He also said that Zelensky wants to avoid defeat first and foremost, and secondly, they want to involve NATO in a direct clash with Russia. So he's saying that this is the way that they would do it, and of course, it would allow Zelensky to remain in power. If you just scroll down a little bit, fam.
Yes, ma'am, fam.
So yeah, basically that's what he said. And then there are at least 2 facilities, he said, that have appropriate scientific knowledge for creating dirty bombs. And there is a letter that he has sent out to the media, and the letter has those details. And I also have a video from Vladimir Putin. This is what Vladimir Putin said. The Combo Couch posted it earlier today.
Let me go.
And Vladimir Putin, if you just scroll down, it's right in here.
It's in there.
Vladimir Putin basically said, right there, he basically said that,
I'm going to turn the volume off so you can read it as he's saying it. Okay?
No. Okay, yeah, fine.
Almost immediately, the territory of Ukraine was turned into a testing ground for military biological experiments, and now they are pumping out weapons, including heavy weaponry. They are ignoring statements of the Kiev regime about the desire to obtain nuclear weapons. After all, it was said publicly about this Kiev authorities, but everyone is silent.
No, everyone is silent.
I can't.
It is known. You just rewind it a little bit. It is also known about plans to use a so-called dirty bomb as provocation. Speaking about the threats in the Commonwealth of Independent States, I would like to note the level of danger posed by ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other terrorist groups is not decreasing.
He's had to deal with freaking terrorism in his country for a while.
Almost immediately, the territory of Ukraine was turned into a testing ground for military biological experiments. This is going back to what we found in Ukraine. So that's all there, right? Because remember, if you guys recall, back in the beginning of the conflict, Russians immediately discovered these labs that initially Victoria Nuland denied, and then they were like, "Oh yes, but they're just nothing really. They're just, yes, they're U.S. labs, but we're just looking at this, and we're not doing anything."
Facilities. They were testing research.
They were just research.
But as soon as the Ukrainians leave them and the Russians take them over, then they become biological weapon, because it's classic Russian behavior, fam, to take over a facility and then use it against the people. Not the fact that it was, yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm not saying not the fact that it was built shitty fucking gain of function biological weapons facilities and labs were built inside the Ukraine. And we showed you the receipts to this, all tied back to the Pentagon.
Yeah.
That's why with the whole freaking out, when people go, "Oh, China's freaking out about when it comes to COVID." Yeah, but if they believe that this is weapons that are being built to go after their DNA, after their ethnicity, after their race, Russia and China, of course they're going to be extra freaking out about it. All we could do is, instead of pointing the finger and saying, "Look how China and Russia are behaving," is change our own behavior, or at least hold our own government accountable for once and for all. But instead, we're kicking back, watching Netflix, doing whatever, and not even caring about what's going on, because once again, we've gotten so comfortable with no war here at home. War is in their backyard. I mean,
right.
Jesus Christ, ladies and gentlemen.
So if you go back to the first video of Vladimir Putin, there's another video right under. I just want to play.
Underneath it?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
That one. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Give me 2 seconds, fam.
One,
keep the volume
2.
off. Go ahead. Oh, shit. My bad. Fumbling over here today, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start from the beginning, fam. Go ahead.
Who is interested in this? You didn't play it. The tactics of blackmail, pressure, and intimidation have long been used by some countries across almost the entire Commonwealth of Independent States space. Attempts to implement scenarios of color revolutions do not stop. The map of nationalism and extremism is actively used and armed conflicts are kindled, meaning they're pushing these conflicts, directly threatening the security of all CIS members. What do those who do it achieve? We see this example of Ukraine, which has become an instrument of American foreign policy. The country has practically lost its sovereignty and is directly controlled by the United States, which uses it as a battering ram against Russia, against our union state with the Republic of Belarus, and against the Collective Security Treaty Organization and the CIS as a whole. At the same time, the true attitude of the United States towards its satellite countries is clearly visible. Okay, so he's right. I mean, Ukraine, and I say go back to 2014, Ukraine stopped being a sovereign country then. Ukraine stopped being a sovereign country way back then when they allowed the United States to come in. That's the reality. That's something that is undeniable at this point. Whether you like Russia or not, whether you think that is a fact, that the United States interfered in the elections, that the United States deposed of their democratically elected leader, that Zelensky is a puppet, that Ukraine would be nothing right now. It would collapse without the funding of the West. And of course, the United States keeps saying they're going to commit to funding, and so does the rest of Europe and the UK. So, and he's absolutely right. I mean, about how the US is treating its satellite, entities. This is about the United States waging war against Russia. It's undeniable. We've seen the battalion. I forget, it's 100 and something battalion, right? It's a bunch of US troops there. There's no denying US participation in this war.
You're talking about the troops that are on the Romanian-Ukrainian border right now doing the 101 Kentucky industry and stuff. I think we should play that real quick, fam. Should I grab that?
If you want to grab it, yeah.
Did we play it the other day? I don't know if we did, but I'm going to play it again right now.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, because and by the way, just a little bit more what you're saying right here. Like this is a pretty good photo. Pretty good photo right here. Primo Radical put this up. Fam was just talking about what gone on and let me get this off there. In 2014, Putin just said directly that it's completely controlled by the United States. He's not lying, ladies and gentlemen. He's not lying at all. And I just want to bring this up here, fam. Remember this picture right there? There they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's Congressman Murphy. That's Senator Murphy over there, Democrat. Senator Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, right over there. There's John McCain, smiling, all happy, as can be. God rest his soul in heaven. That's who's right. This is 2014. That's Vitaly Klitschko, who's now the mayor of Kiev. Remember when Victoria Nuland was talking on that conversation, fam? They were saying, "Oh yeah, I think Klitschko should stay where he's at. Let's use Yaz instead." That's how that thing got started. I don't know how anybody could ignore that, but it's just ridiculous at this point. I'm gonna grab.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, you grab that, and I was just gonna say, Ukraine is a battering ram. Those were Putin's words. Ukraine is a battering ram. Basically, what he means by that is Ukraine is like the bait, the person you put to get punched by the bully, right? And you just use them to as like the first row of fighting, but they're really not. You don't care how many Ukrainians you kill. They don't care how many Ukrainians they kill. That's why they say we're going to go to the last Ukrainian, not because they care about Ukraine, but because they don't care about how many Ukrainians die and how far down the hole Europe goes and how far down the hole. Remember, Victoria Nuland said, "Fuck the EU." She said it, and so they don't care about what happens to everybody else as long as they get to literally defeat Russia in some sort of way. The problem is they're not defeating Russia, and they're not anywhere close to doing that. So what are they going to do now? That question is extremely dangerous. What are they going to do now? They're not defeating Russia. Russia is using but a fraction of their army, and Russia is fighting an existential war as for its existence, to exist as the Russian Federation. They see this as a fight against an evil empire that is threatening not just their way of life, but the way of life of other people that have been waiting for them to push back. They have an ally in China. They have an ally in Iran. They have allies in the global south, in Africa, in Latin America, India, Pakistan, the East. The United States isn't calling the shots anymore, and they haven't come to terms with it, and they're doing whatever they can to throwing everything out to see what sticks, I think, is what's going on.
Some people, John Kiriakou also talks about the fact that these people aren't too bright. Well, yeah, they're not too bright at all. And they have the same playbook. I'm going to mute us up. I'm going to play this out right now. Hold on. Mark's asking for the link. Right above you, Mark. Got it. He's going to be coming in a second. Let's go ahead and play this. I'm going to mute us up, guys. This is the CBS report that was on the other day. Quite scary. Troops right there on the border. Hold on.
Has added an additional 20,000 since the start of the war in Ukraine back in February. The U.S. military has added an additional 20,000 troops to the European theater, taking the total there to around 100,000. And many of those troops are in Eastern Europe. Only on CBS Mornings, we're getting a look at the U.S. forces closest to the fighting in Ukraine, supporting NATO allies and sending a very clear message to Russia. Charlie D'Agata is in Romania for us this morning. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. Romania is now home to the 101st Airborne Division. It's the first time it's been headquartered here in Europe in nearly 80 years. This is some of the equipment they brought from home, a 777 howitzer, ready to roll at any minute. They're specifically trained to deploy on any battlefield in the world within hours.
Go, 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 go.
Ready to fight. The reason one of America's most elite air assault divisions has been sent right here, right now. We joined Deputy Commander Brigadier General John Lubis and Colonel Edwin Mathaidis, commander of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, on board a Black Hawk helicopter for an hour's chopper ride to the very edge of NATO territory, around 3 miles from the border with Ukraine. From the start of the war, Russia advanced from Crimea along the Black Sea to Kherson, aiming to capture port cities like Mykolaiv and Odessa to landlock Ukraine. We're right about here.
We're ready to defend every inch of NATO soil. Why is it necessary to have the 101st here? We bring a unique capability. We're a light infantry force, but again, we bring that mobility through our aircraft and our air assaults.
We skirt along the Black Sea coast as we head further north.
We're roughly 20 miles away from Snake Island, this contentious island that's been fought over between the Ukrainians and the Russians, currently under Ukrainian control.
At a forward operating site, we watched as U.S. soldiers and Romanian troops pounded targets in a joint ground and air assault. The tank rounds and artillery fire are real. So is the enemy, meant to recreate the fight against Russian forces in Ukraine. A message to Russia and NATO allies alike: we're here.
The real meaning for me to have the American troops here is like if you were to have allies in Normandy before any enemy was there.
In all, roughly 4,700 soldiers of the 101st Screaming Eagles from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, have been deployed to reinforce NATO's eastern flank.
You've had an opportunity to watch, observe, and possibly study the Russians. What do you think of them so far?
So we're closely watching them. So we're building objectives to practice against that, replicate exactly what's going on in Ukraine. We're the closest American unit to the fighting in Ukraine.
And what does that feel like? What does that mean?
It keeps us on our toes, right? So it makes
Ready to fight tonight is a message that we've heard repeatedly. It's not just about defending NATO territory, but if the fight escalates and NATO partners are under threat, they're fully prepared to cross over into Ukrainian territory if ordered to do so. Back to you in the studio.
Oh boy, Charlie Daggett, force in Romania, 101st Airborne. They've deployed to every major conflict since D-Day, and you sure hope they don't have to add another one to the list.
Yes.
Oof, scary stuff. You're glad we have them, though.
Yeah, you're right about that.
I like.
Oh my god.
Before we can give a Steve Sisolak commercial, I didn't want Mark to get too nauseous. That after he's seen that last little clip over there, the 101st Infantry Screaming Eagles, Mark, they're at the border, but there's a lot of other things. I mean, since this operation had started, I made a little bit of a list. This is in early February. We had immediate sanctions on Russia, but then followed by good-hearted stories like the ghost of Kiev. And then eventually, we had sirens in Kiev, but we had YouTube playing at a subway concert, followed by the Bucha false flag, the standoff in Azovstal steel plant. More sanctions on Russia. NATO troops we found out that were operating within the bounds of Ukraine. The ruble hit a record high. Russia mobilized. We had Nord Stream 2. Of course, the Donbass regions, they also joined and voted to remove themselves away from Ukraine and join the Russian Federation. And now we have all this craziness right now with I think the last stand in Kherson. We saw the troops very, very close. There's talk of a dirty bomb that's been floating around. But these nuclear exercises, where we are at today, Mark, we have Mark Sloboda here, ladies and gentlemen, in case you haven't noticed, our resident inside guy when it comes to this region over there. Mark, is there something different with these nuclear exercises that are going on? This time, it seems like the Russians alerted the Pentagon, and they might have done this all the time, but was there something a little bit extra special with this particular message, being the fact that they're letting them know that they're going to show what's going to happen in case of a nuclear strike?
Hi, Pasta. Hi, Fiorella. Thanks for having me.
Hi.
It's always an honor and a pleasure to be on the conversation couch.
Love you. Welcome back. We love you, brother.
Yeah. So these Russian strategic exercises, nicknamed Grom or Thunder, come directly on the heels of NATO's strategic exercises over the last 2 weeks, Steadfast Noon, which was conducted in Europe. They were both strategic exercises. Both utilized all three vectors of the trifecta of nuclear operations, of testing missiles, testing bombers, testing submarines. And these exercises were both annual exercises. They were both planned in advance. And it is absolutely normal to alert, the other side, the other strategic power, that you are about to conduct these exercises, usually well in advance. That was all followed, but it's just the context that it happens in that we're all now acutely aware that NATO and Russia are at war.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
That's it. We're at
NATO.
war.
Yeah. Yeah, they're at war. But obviously it hasn't been like an outright declaration. But Mark, right before you came in, I don't know if you saw the 101st Battalion, right?
101st Airborne Division. Yes.
Yeah, Airborne Division. Yeah, I mean, Mark, you said they're at war. I agree with you, but they haven't admitted it. But with that, how do you deny that? How can at this point they deny that they're at war with Russia? I mean, this at least a proxy war. I mean, because they won't admit it. I mean, the media won't admit it. Nobody will admit it. But everybody here knows that this is what's happening, and everybody is afraid of what comes next.
Yeah, I mean, it goes far beyond just a proxy conflict where the U.S. and the other Western powers are openly shoving tens of billions of taxpayer dollars worth of arms and money into a regime that literally has state-armed and funded neo-Nazi battalions by the score, right? The Russian troops are, of course, and Ukrainians, or former Ukrainians now, former East Ukrainians, are dying at the hands of these weapons. They're dying at the hands of the intelligence, the planning. I mean, there's very little that the Ukrainians that serve the Kiev regime are doing at this point, other than the actual dying, right? Everything is being run out of the Pentagon and the CIA. And we've heard from the Washington Post, we've heard from the New York Times that there are CIA and US Special Forces and European commandos on the ground in Ukraine directing these forces, right? Now, of course, they pinky swear, oh, well, they're not actually directly involved in the combat. Yeah, okay, all right. We've heard that before, right? Most of your guests are old enough to remember, or at least to have heard of Vietnam, right? So I don't believe that anyone is actively buying this. But with the 101st Airborne, this is a new level, all right? The 101st Airborne has actually been there for several months now. They've increased the numbers that are there up to about 5,000 troops, but it's actually the focus on them and this quite orchestrated message that is being delivered through CBS, through the Western media, drawing attention. And they were saying very specific things. One, they were saying this is not a peacetime deployment. They said outright, this is a combat deployment. We are prepared to go to war with Russia in Ukraine tonight. Yeah, they said that outright. I mean, and they said the conditions that they would do so. If Russia attacks NATO, okay, in this case, it's specifically Romania because that's where they are. Yeah, I don't think that Russia's about to attack Romania or Peoria or Oakland, right, anytime soon, right? The other condition they gave is if Russia escalates in Ukraine. What the hell does that mean? Wait, there's a war, and the U.S. keeps saying we're not involved, we're not involved, but we have to win, and Russia has to lose, right? Now we have these ambiguous terms where the Biden is administration is already U-turning, shifting from there won't be any U.S. boots on the ground. Well, there's already U.S. boots on the ground, but now they're about to put the 101st Airborne Division there as well. And other than this vague threat that an escalation would be enough for them to get involved, we also heard a very specific comments coming from CBS in this point. Comments that aren't a normal part of Western mainstream messaging on this. They specifically mentioned Odessa and that Russia is going to try to take Odessa and deny the Kiev regime the last major port city. And that was specifically in the context of that the 101st Airborne Division is there and that they are ready to deploy on a moment's notice. Because they're light infantry, right? They don't have any heavy weapons with them, which I hate to tell you, if you toss that into the battlefield in Ukraine right now, I don't care how mythologized these American superheroes are, they'd be ripped up in a heartbeat if they were actually dropped into the trenches in combat as a light infantry unit. But they specifically mentioned Odessa and that Russia would try to take Odessa. And I think that Russia will try to take Odessa somewhere down the line, 6 months to a year, right? There's definitely going to be a move there because Odessa is Russian speaking and Russian leaning, and they have been politically repressed and had the neo-Nazi jackboot shoved down on their neck there since 2014 to keep them in line and to keep them from joining the Donbass. And the fact that it was all being brought up in this context, and we've heard repeated narrative framework building statements coming out of the US, coming out of US officials, coming out of Polish officials, the Polish foreign minister, coming out of the former CIA director in general, Petraeus, that if Russia uses nuclear weapons, and they specifically mention a low-yield nuclear weapon like a TAC nuke or a dirty bomb in Ukraine, then that is the red line. And NATO force, well, not NATO forces, they don't say NATO because it wouldn't be NATO, but U.S. forces and a coalition of the willing, meaning the Poles and maybe the Baltics, right, will directly involved in Ukraine. They say that quite outright. And we even heard from the EU foreign policy chief, the EU high foreign policy, high muckety muck, Joseph Borrell, that if that was the case, then Russian forces would be annihilated. Well, that's some pretty big smack talking from a guy who leads an EU who doesn't even have a military, right? I mean, yeah. I'm just saying. But this is signaling. This is the same type of thing that we saw in Syria when the U.S. says, if Assad does this one thing, uses chemical weapons when he's winning, when Russia has intervened on his side, if he does this one thing, then we'll have to conduct airstrikes. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Even if it's such a slight thing as a, say, chlorine attack that anyone on the street could arrange with a few canisters ripped from a local factory, right? And sure enough, we saw ridiculous, well-debunked chemical weapons attacks and U.S. airstrikes on Damascus. This is exactly what is happening now, where we hear this repeated messaging, very specific. If Russia uses nuclear weapons, which have no utility for Russia in Ukraine, right? What are they going to do? Nuke Kiev? Are you serious? They want to free Kiev from this regime. They don't want to nuke Kiev. And certainly a dirty bomb being used by a country with the largest nuclear arsenal and the second largest military in the world, of which up till now it has only used 10% of its active duty capability. There's zero battlefield utility. A dirty bomb is not a battlefield weapon. It doesn't kill large numbers of people. It is an act of political terrorism. It is meant to instoke fear and reaction. And we have seen this regime in Kiev for the last nearly 3 months now themselves fire on their own nuclear power plant in Zaporozhye, the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, right? With our long-range artillery, some of it provided by the United States, and kamikaze drones, specifically targeting often the spent fuel containers there, and exactly to create such a dirty bomb incident on their own soil that would, they believe, draw the West into the conflict, lead to a direct military intervention. And they just, it's the same story that we've heard again and again from the beginning, that the Russians are doing this to themselves, right? The pro-Russian separatists in Donbass, they're shelling themselves. It's just something they do. I don't know why they do it. They just kill themselves, right? Yeah. We heard it with the Crimean Bridge. After an initial gloating and celebration and stamps and everything, when it turns out that it didn't actually destroy the bridge, a few hours later, as it was back to, oh, no, we didn't do it. The Russians did it to themselves. The Russians blew up their own 30 billion pipeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They're blowing themselves up in the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, right, in order to blame Ukraine. That's the same ridiculous stories repeated absolutely uncritically by the Western media, doing as the stenographers they are. And while I am sure that most of your listeners out there for the Conversation Couch audience don't believe this sheeple pablum, unfortunately, most Americans will just accept it without any thought. Because Russia, right? I mean, that's what Russians do, evidently. They just kill themselves, when it's least convenient for them and most convenient for the West to do so. And this signaling is to create such an incident where the US and Poland will say, oh, nukes have been used. We're going to have to go into Ukraine and create a safe zone. Right? Not to directly engage with the Russian troops. That's not what it's going to be. It's going to be US and Polish troops in uniform, because there's already thousands of them there as quote unquote mercenaries at this point, particularly the Poles. But it will be them going in to create a safe zone. And let's be frank, if they go into Western Ukraine, Russia will make a lot of noise, and they'll scream and they'll yell, and they won't do anything, because West Ukraine is not East Ukraine. Russia doesn't really want to go into West Ukraine to begin with. And because the population there, unlike East Ukraine, they hate Russians, right? They hate Russians and they hate Russia. It's part of their history, their cultural, their national identity conception. It's completely the opposite of the people of East Ukraine. But if the U.S. goes into Odessa, if they send the 104th Airborne just across the border there in Romania into southern Ukraine and put boots on the ground in Odessa to create a human tripwire and say to Russia, what are you going to do now? Are you going to come and try and take Odessa while there's U.S. light infantry on the ground there in Odessa? It's actually very similar to what Russia did in Syria, when Russia put troops on the ground to create facts on the ground and said, you're not going to overthrow the government in Damascus now. And then the U.S. said, oh, yeah, well, we're going to camp out in East Syria. What are you going to do about it? And we're still staring across the line, across the Tigris in Syria right now with the U.S., occupation forces on one side of the river and Russian and the Syrian government on the other. Well, we could very soon be facing exactly that situation in Ukraine. And I believe that is what all this pablum nonsense talk about nuclear weapons, Russia's warning that Russia is taking this very seriously. After months of no contact at all, the Russian defense minister contacted the British foreign minister, the French foreign minister, the U.S. foreign minister, the Turkish foreign minister, all within 12 hours, and say, your client regime is about to let off a dirty bomb there, and we're not going to sit and take it, and we know you're involved. And then they went around and told China and India, this is what they're doing, right? So Russians taking this very seriously. Hopefully, the attention they are putting on this will avert Kiev's plans, but there's no guarantee of that at this moment. And if this is, passed over as this incident extremis, right, that will allow, Biden to do his U-turn on policy and put U.S. uniformed troops on the ground in Ukraine, then it will be something else, because this is what they're seeing, that with the Russia calling up its reserves and taking off the kid gloves with this, the new strategy of crippling the Kiev regime's electricity infrastructure to inhibit their military logistics, because everything in Ukraine is moved around by trains, and the trains run on electricity. So you take out the electricity network, they can't move around troops, they can't move around tanks, they can't move around fuel, ammunition, artillery shells, anything.
Yeah.
With that type of strategy, and it has to be said that that's what the U.S. does on day one, right? That's what when they went into Iraq, they took out the electrical infrastructure on day one.
Yeah.
Russia is doing this 9 months into the conflict. They really should have done it a lot earlier. They should have called up the reserves a lot earlier. But I believe they were signaling to NATO that our intentions are limited, and let's sit down at the negotiation table with the terms that we talked about at the beginning of this. And that was just ignored.
Yeah.
And now Russia is forced to escalate to this step after the flood of Western weapons into the country. They beat the first Ukrainian army. I mean, they completely demilitarized the existing Ukrainian military, which was quite significant. And now they're on finishing off the second one. The West is running out of military supplies to send Ukraine. You see that in the Western mainstream media headlines, right? We don't have any more artillery shells. We don't have any more artillery pieces. There's not air defense that we can easily give them. We can't give them main battle tanks or fighter jets because the training time would be years. So they've run out of things that they can give them. And they see the only thing they have left is direct military intervention.
Yep. There's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of questions I want to ask. There's Odessa, that's on the table right now. I mentioned all these things. I forgot to mention the Crimean Bridge. I'm surprised you guys didn't catch me. But there's so much going on right now. A lot of people are saying, well, what's going to happen? Is this dirty bomb for real? Is this just nonsense? How do they have this information ahead of time? Is this going to draw the troops in from the United States that are now at the Crimean border? Even one of our followers over here on the Convo Couch on the Rockfin, guys, if you haven't gone over to Rockfin, please do. I suspect the 101st Infantry or Division aren't there to fight. I think they will be the next Pearl Harbor. I expect the dirty bomb may turn up on just on the Romanian side. I hope I'm wrong. But I mean, everything's on the table right now. United States does not care about human life. It seems like they'll do anything to maybe draw themselves into this war. But I want to talk a little bit more about the dirty bomb before we get to Odessa, because Odessa is an interesting situation. I was listening to Scott Ritter on Garland Nixon show this morning talking about some of the tactics that the Russians would use, especially at the end of World War II, where on the retreat, Germany would set up a lot of fortress towns, hoping that they would, fortify these fortresses towns, that the Russians would come in, spend a lot of energy, waste a lot of lives trying to take back these towns. But instead, they just surrounded a lot of these towns, formed blockades until their enemies suffered enough and then gave up. A lot of people think that that might happen in Odessa. I want your opinions about what they might do with Odessa, and talk about the dirty bomb. How did they get this information that they can accurately put out there and say, hey, listen, they're going to use this dirty bomb, just like we call Bucha, we're calling dirty bomb right now.
Okay, so how do they know about this? Because Russia has so many moles in Ukraine that it's like Swiss cheese, right?
Gotcha.
And that's been obvious. If you read the headlines, you will constantly see articles about hundreds of collaborators, thousands of collaborators have been arrested in Ukraine. Why? Why would they collaborate with Russia? Because they don't regard this regime that seized power in 2014 as their own, right? They don't want to be part of a Banderistan that is against, turning Ukraine into a Western battle platform against Russia. There's lots of Ukrainians that feel that way. Now, there's lots of Ukrainians that don't feel that way, particularly from the west of the country. But the whole point of this and why there's been a civil conflict in the country is that it is a national identity divided country, right? That's why there's been a civil conflict there. Ukrainians don't all agree on this, on the course of the government since 2014, since the war. It was just a couple of months ago that the Kiev regime announced that the head of their intelligence service and their prosecutor general were fired and were being charged with treason. Why? Because they had found some 600 collaborators in the intelligence services and in the prosecutor, general's office, just 600 in the ranks of two government institutions that were working with Russia, right? Or they believe they were working with Russia. Regardless, it's almost certain they didn't get all of them, and that there are still plenty of moles out there. And this has been echoed in the Western press. It has been talked about in the pages of Washington Post and the New York Times that, these anonymous CIA and MI6 officials admit that, that the Kiev regime is riddled with moles. That's how.
Wow. And the Odessa question, as far as about, like you said, 6 months, is that just strategically they're going to wait things out for maybe everything to change? And also, too, your good friend Gonzalo Lira said eventually that they're going to take Kiev. I know. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
I go on his show, man. I go on his show.
But well, listen. And when somebody told me that, like, dude, I just heard this great discussion between Gonzalo Lero and Mark Slobodka. I was like, oh shit, I got to see that. That's got to be interesting. But he did say eventually Russia will eventually take Kiev. And I'm wondering right now, after hearing, Putin's speech, not the recent one, but the one a week ago when he took questions from the press, and he kind of alluded to the fact, like, listen, when this started, we didn't want to go in there and take these things, but it seems like they've left them no choice. That how could they allow this government to still stay in place? That eventually they're going to have to march all the way east, the way Mr. Lira said, and take Odessa, take Kiev. I know I've got multiple questions here, but please go right ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, and if you'll remember, I said this at the beginning of the conflict. The Kremlin was naive. they
did say that.
They thought that this would be something that they could intimidate, make a show of force, make some ground, and then everything would be to the negotiation table. And no, right? And we heard from Mark Milley, the U.S. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in the last week, that the U.S. feels that if Russia wins in Ukraine, if they lose, then that will be the end of the collapse of the rules-based order. What is this rules-based order? Oh, that's the rules that the U.S. sets, not international law, not the UN Charter. That's their rules-based order, i.e., that is code for U.S. hegemony, U.S.-led Western global hegemony and primacy. They feel that is on the line here. And if they feel that is on the line, and Russia feels that what is happening in Ukraine is an existential national security threat to them, that means that neither side is willing to back down, which means that Russia has no option at this point but regime change in Kiev. That's the only thing that it won't end it, but it will provide an end, right? Like I said back in February, this is a forever war. This is an area of permanent destabilization of Europe right now, of a new bloody Berlin Wall, which will be the Dnieper River between the East and the West, between Russia and NATO. And there will always be insurgency on one side or the other. There will always be conflict there. Even if you kick this regime out of Kiev, even if Zelensky is forced to take an apartment up with Juan Guaido and Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, and they all can pretend that they rule countries together, right? Even if that's the situation, it won't end, because the people of West Ukraine, of Banderistan, as I like to call it, Galicia in historical terms, will never accept this. So it's not going to end there. And why 6 months, right? Well, first of all, Russia's still on the defensive, right? The Kiev regime's counteroffensives are still continuing.
You're talking about Odessa now, right?
Yes, Odessa, right? That's why that it will be at least 6 months, probably a year before there's a serious move on Odessa, somewhere between there. Because right now, Russian forces are still on the defensive because they're still suffering from the result of not having enough manpower, right? While the Kiev regime forcibly conscripted the entire country. That, has been playing out for months now. And that the result is, the counteroffensives that we have seen going on, Russia's, withdrawals in several places. The new defensive lines they set have actually held now for over 3 weeks. There's been no significant movement, and really brutal casualties, particularly in the Kherson steppes on the Ukrainian side. But Russia's still in the defensive mode, and it will be another 4 to 6 weeks of Kiev regime counteroffensive finally grinding to a halt and running out of steam. And it's about that time that the Russian reservists, the 300,000 plus reservists that have been called up, will be brought in. And that will more than double the amount of forces that Russia has had in the quote special military operation, the intervention, since February. That will more than double it, right? So that's really significant. That is definitely going to change things. But there will still be 6 weeks of Kiev regime counteroffensives or offensive, however you want to call it, before that. And Russia may have to withdraw from a few other places yet until that tide is turned. But once that tide is turned, this has been like an Ardennes forest offensive in World War II for Kiev. They threw everything they have left into this. And once it peters out, that's it. They won't be capable of another counteroffensive like that again, because they will have wasted so much Western hardware that cannot be replaced at this point, and they're completely dependent on it. So this is their last ditch effort. And when it turns, it's going to turn hard, because that will be when the Russian reservists are entering the theater. And there will almost certainly be a Russian winter offensive, right? But Odessa first, they have to be thrown back from the area in Kherson that they're in. Then Nikolaev has to be taken, because Nikolaev is a major city on the way in southern Ukraine on the way to Odessa. And then there's Odessa, and they're not going to just give up Odessa, which means Odessa will have to be surrounded. And that will be a major exercise requiring upwards of 100,000 Russian troops, probably around 150,000 to 200,000, to effectively surround Odessa and cut off the supply lines to it and deal with it. And we saw how long the Azov held out in Mariupol, right, for 2 months. That's why I say this is going to be a very long conflict.
Yeah, and so today Putin actually said that Ukraine has effectively lost its sovereignty. We can argue, that Ukraine did this, that lost its sovereignty in 2014 with U.S. intervention, but he actually called Ukraine a battering ram for the West. In terms of what you just said, also Ukraine has said that they want to join NATO in 2 years. But because of what you're saying this is going to be a long conflict, because of some of the analysis of perhaps Russia feeling like they have to expand not just to East Ukraine, but beyond Odessa even. Do you think that Ukraine will actually join NATO? Because I keep thinking, like, what part of Ukraine will be left at that point?
What rump piece of Ukraine are you talking about in 2 years' time? Because
yeah,
all right. They've already lost the Donbass. Russia has already laid claim through the results of referendums, however much you may choose to believe them or not. I have family there, in East Ukraine, so I know what the actual score is in that part of the country, say as compared to the west of the country. So I'm fully on board with that. But that's Kherson and Zaporozhye, and the way this conflict is going, they will have no choice but to do the same in Odessa and Dnipropetrovsk and Kharkov and Sumy and Chernigov until all of Ukraine east and south of the Dnieper have been brought into the fold, because they see that the West has been operating, the U.S. primarily, under this, very simplistic geopolitical mindset of a risk board, right? You remember risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. If you see an area on the board that is not occupied, if it is, say, a gray area, you've got two choices. You either take that area and you make it part of your side, or the other side will take it and use it against you, right? And the U.S. was Ukrainian neutrality, right, was no longer acceptable to the U.S. Neutrality was in the Ukrainian constitution until 2014, until the government was overthrown and the openly U.S.-backed putsch there. They could not join NATO. They could not join the CSTO. Neutrality was enshrined in their constitution. After 2014, the U.S. considered that they had geopolitically flipped it, and neutrality was no longer an option. Ukraine was to be used as a battering ram, right, against Russia, in the same way that the U.S. intends to use Taiwan against China. And it's an old Rand Corporation strategy. It's called the pressure cooker. You surround your adversaries with hostile states by hook or crook, right? You bring into power political forces in those countries that will serve as willing proxies for use against your adversary. You surround them with them. That is exactly the intention. It was the intention with Georgia, with the Saakashvili strongman regime down there. It's the intention with Ukraine. And that is exactly what the West has been working off of. They will not back off of it at this point because they see the Russian and Chinese and even Iranian strategic partnership has grown so strong at this point that they have a very limited window timetable left in which to operate before Russia has regained enough military capacity and China has built up military capacity such that they can no longer dictate to those countries in their own backyards.
Yeah, it's also the plan to do that. What do you say? Hook or crook? Kosovo, Guatemala, Syria, Honduras, Nicaragua, Chile, Brazil. The list
Libya.
goes on and on. Libya. It doesn't stop. Fam, you got anything else for our longtime returning champion, most episodes as a guest on the Convo Couch, insider Mark Sloboda?
Mark.
I just crash on your couch, Pasta.
You can. Yeah,
it should be my couch to crash on when you're not.
Crashed on the crash couch with Mark Sloboda. He's crashing on. He's like the guy on the couch from Half Baked. Anything else, fam?
Yeah, just have one last question, Mark. Everybody's freaking out right now, rightfully so.
Good.
With the escalations of from the everybody except U.S. Americans, only a segment of them, right? We've seen the squad retract this letter of diplomacy that they had for Biden quickly when they were told no. They reiterated their support for the for Ukraine and for Zelensky, saying that they didn't want to sound like Republicans. So now, the anti-war left is no more in the United States. It hasn't been for a long time. But more importantly, the everybody is freaking out everywhere else because they're seeing this escalation pushed by NATO, by these troops, by everything that is the attacks against Russia, the just pushing the buttons of Russia, while Russia has been very much restrictive. Is nuclear war inevitable? I mean, at this point, like, do we still have any sort of, like, as if you were, a fortune teller, if you were like the guy from the future, do we still have time to save us from going into maybe not necessarily nuclear war, but even like a world war, which I think eventually would end with nukes? Like, is there a possibility right now to save us from doing that? Do you think we're going to get there, or do you see us going a different route?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, with regards to the progressive congressional caucus, and they're tucking their tail between their heads, I just had this mental image stuck in my head, and I want to stick it in your head, of Nancy Pelosi in dominatrix gear, right? Leather PVC from head to foot, cracking the whip on the progressives and saying, "Get back in line! Get back in line! Kiss my boots!" And they did.
Thank you for sticking that in my head, Mark. I really appreciate it. Nancy Pelosi in spandex is the last thing I need right now.
We had to make things worse. Progressives, get back in line. I put it up there for you. They couldn't even be anti-war for 24 hours. They couldn't last 24 friggin' hours. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I have been very I have not believed that nuclear war was on the table with the U.S. and Russia for years now. I have always been the one to talk that down, despite what was happening in Syria and whatever, from a realist standpoint and watching the deconfliction that was going on, I was saying, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. Now, I do not believe that nuclear war is inevitable, but I actually believe it is a serious possibility. And that should frighten you, right? That alone, right? I mean, you can pay attention to this nuclear clock, the scientists have at however many seconds from midnight. Yeah. But they've had that those hands positioned kind of funnily for years now. But there is a serious possibility now, right? Russia, the Russian president was very clear on that. He gave a speech back in September that has been terribly distorted and just disinfo misrepresented out of just complete absurdity, where he said that in a very almost boilerplate US type statement, where that he will use all means at his disposal, all systems to defend Russia and the Russian people. Right? That's what he said. That became, in the Western mainstream media headlines, Putin threatens to use TAC nukes in Ukraine. Right? I mean, how that happened. Go back and read the statements and see how they have been distorted. And he said that. What's more, the sentence before, the paragraph before, and the paragraph after made clear that he was saying that, particularly in the context that he had received threats from high-ranking Western officials threatening to use nuclear weapons on Russian forces in Ukraine. Right? He said that before, and he said that after his statement that Russia will use all means at their disposal to defend Russia and the Russian people, that he had received nuclear threats. That was completely left out of Western mainstream media, or just dismissed out of hand. The one time I did see it mentioned in paragraph 17 of a New York Times story, right? It was dismissed out of hand. But I mean, we have heard so much in recent years. The Pentagon has been so hot to develop and deploy what they call more usable battlefield nuclear weapons. They've got them, they developed them, they deployed them, and they are specifically for use against Russia and China. They wanted weapons that weren't just a strategic weapon. They wanted nuclear weapons that they can use on the battlefield.
That's where we're at. And Joe Biden is taking us into World War III, nuclear war. I don't think he's calling the shots, Mark. I think there's somebody behind the scenes. Listen, I do have this.
Didn't he just say something about President Kamala Harris? I mean,
well, forget about. I mean, the other day, just 2 days ago, he saluted a tractor when he heard the music and he didn't know which way to get off the stage. Listen, I think it's great that a lot of people are applying a lot of pressure to people like the squad and to members like Bernie Sanders, or Bernie Sanders hasn't got it yet. Somebody's going to catch him sooner or later. Ayanna Pressley got it. AOC, they won't leave her alone. Well, this is what happened the other day with Elizabeth Warren. I want your thoughts on this one.
Senator, you have got to stop funding Nazi-infested Ukrainian regimes. You are bringing us to the brink of nuclear war. You have got those billions could be used for a lot of good things here in the U.S. Instead of funding Nazis in Ukraine, they're preparing a dirty bomb to detonate and blame on Russia. This is not why we're here. I am here to make sure that billions of lives are saved instead of getting into a nuclear war. You've asked me, I heard you. I will move toward the exit.
Yes,
that's right. No, nuclear war. Yes, I'm black and brown too. And I don't want them to die in a nuclear war. My tax money is funding because the Congress and the Senate are funding Nazis in Ukraine. Do you want a nuclear war? A nuclear war will cancel your debt and your life. I have sent letters, I have sent emails, I have made calls to these senators and congressmen. They refuse to respond. We are marching to nuclear war behind fools in political office. They have got to stop it. Nuclear war is the issue. Nuclear war. Consideration.
None of this matters. None of this matters if there's a nuclear war and we all die. In 2018, there was an evil.
And my thoughts on this? This has all happened before. Check your history. In the 1950s, the U.S. funded an insurgency of SS veterans in West Ukraine, the people who were the grandparents of the Banderites who infest the Kiev regime right now. And the CIA actually led this insurgency against the Soviet Union on the ground. Even the LA Times did a piece on this, I believe, a couple of years ago. The U.S. did the same thing with the very same Banderite fascists in Ukraine back in the 1950s. They didn't learn their lesson. They're doing the same thing again. And it's really great that a few U.S. politicians are being confronted on this, but there's broad bipartisan consensus. The U.S. foreign policy does not change until there is some systemic regime change in that country. And if it doesn't work this time for some reason, they'll do it again.
It's kind of crazy because we understand what's going on as far as, the regime change playbook, Brzezinski's chessboard. Let's create another Afghan situation for the Russians on their border. Do you think that what the Russians are doing in Latin America, mainly like with countries like Nicaragua, where they're pretty much getting entrenched in there and helping them out with their forces, their military, is a way of poking back the bear on their hemisphere? Or do you think there's a little bit more to it, just trying to establish countries that have similar governments and similar needs, maybe trading routes? What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, let's be clear. The amount of Russian military engagement with countries like Nicaragua or Ecuador is next to nothing, right? It's mostly rhetorical. There's not anything really significant going on there. The U.S. just reacts if Russia even looks at the Western Hemisphere. That's our hemisphere, right? How dare you look? If they even have diplomatic relations, it's seen as a threat. Russia has next to no military relations with Nicaragua or with Ecuador or with Venezuela. And they have next to nothing economic relations either, because it's the other side of the world, and Russia's geoeconomic horizons just aren't that big, and neither are their geopolitical horizons. That's just, sure, Russia would, make some statements that if you keep poking us in our backyard, we could poke you there, right? Mm-hmm. And if you'll remember, there was a big show that Russia flew a couple of bombers to Venezuela a couple of years ago, and so on. But that was just for show, right? That didn't really do anything. There wasn't really any change there. It was making a statement. And I'm going to be frank. Russia doesn't have the military capability to set up. It just does not have the geopolitical horizons that the Soviet Union did. They don't have the capability to do it.
Fam.
That's
it for Mr. Sloboda today. Mark Sloboda, ladies and gentlemen, our returning champion. A guy who always comes on for quite some time. Mark, we've been doing this for 5 years now. That it's the end of October. We started it 5 years ago. You were one of our first guests back in the days to educate us on so many things and to keep us abroad of what's going on. Did you have a trip recently to Crimea or to the Donbass recently? Have you any plans on going?
Yeah.
How was it?
I don't like the Crimea personally. It's a little too arid for me, but I mean,
a little too what?
Arid. It's a little too dry. Remember, the water was cut off to the Crimea for 8 years. By the Kiev regime that built a dam to stop the flow of water, a whole crime against humanity thing that the West ignored, right? To collectively punish the Crimean people. But even before that, Crimea is a pretty dry place. Yes, it's warmer, but I like the Arctic anyway. I take all my vacations in the Arctic. So we have family there, so we go there. But I can't say that it's really my cup of tea. And the Donbass, Donetsk is still being shelled nearly every day.
Yeah.
So that is not a pleasant place, and it won't be a pleasant place until all of the regime's fortress areas, outside of Donetsk, Adveyevka, Pesky, and so on, are taken. And they'll have to be taken building by building, because every building has been turned into a firing point and a fortress. And the old Soviet factories with their bomb shelters, it's the same Azovstal, story all over again. They'll have to be completely surrounded and choked off, and building to building, basement to basement, room to room search and clearing, which is a type of combat that heavily favors the defenders. It's tough.
Yeah.
It will be done, but it will take time. And until that, civilians will keep dying in Donetsk as they have been dying for the last 8 years. Poroshenko, the previous president of the Kiev regime, he said it quite openly. We will win this conflict because our children will go to schools and their children will cower huddled in basements.
Yeah.
He said that openly. It's on YouTube. Anyone can check it. Well, the reality is the shoe is on the other foot. And the people who've backed this regime, often they now have to hide in basements or metros with their children because their cities are being bombed in return.
Poroshenko also said that he built a NATO facility inside the borders of Ukraine. And you know who was at Poroshenko's inauguration? One Joe Biden. Mark Sloboda, ladies and gentlemen, our insider, our returning champion, our man of mans. He likes the
vampire.
Vampire. He likes the snow better than the sun, and he's got a crow back there hanging on out. We love you, Mark Sloboda.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you. And happy Halloween, by the way. It's favorite time of the year.
You guys should hook on up, and I'll virtually cook your meal. We love you, Mark.
Happy stuff, man.
We love you, brother. He's the best.
Bye.
Mark Sloboda, ladies and gentlemen. Fam, he's fire when he comes to the show, man. That was a great show. So many things to talk about. Wow.
We do have like a couple sections. We can at least do one of them.
Yeah, let's do one of them. Which one do you want to do?
Let's do the progressives letter thing. It won't take too long. You guys, we kind of sort of touched on it a little bit. They retracted this letter. Now I want you guys to read this. I'll read it for you because this is so okay. So initially what happened was they put out, right, Rashida Tlaib, she's the leader, right? She put out this letter saying they are seeking diplomacy with Joe Biden on Russia, Ukraine, because we are gearing towards nuclear war. And they retracted this letter. It was the most milquetoast letter, right? It was the most whatever letter. And they retracted it because they didn't want to agree with Republicans. That's essentially why. And not only that, they blamed their staff. So this is what it says. Congressional Progressive Caucus shares statement on Ukraine letter. It was Pramila Jayapal, because she is the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And she issued the following statement. The Congressional Progressive Caucus hereby withdraws its recent letter to the White House regarding Ukraine. The letter was drafted several months ago, but unfortunately was released by staff without vetting. As chair of the caucus, I accept responsibility for this. Because of the timing, our message is being conflated by some as equivalent to the recent statement by the Republican leader McCarthy threatening an end to aid to Ukraine if Republicans take over. The proximity of these statements created the unfortunate appearance that Democrats who have strongly, and this is where they gloat, who have strongly and unanimously supported and voted for every package of military, strategic, and economic assistance to the Ukrainian people and literal Nazis, are somehow aligned with Republicans who seek to pull the plug on American support for President Zelensky and the Ukrainian forces. Nothing could be further from the truth. Of course not. You love war. Every war ends with diplomacy, and this one will too, after Ukrainian victory. Do you see that? Do you hear them? The letter sent yesterday, although restating that basic principle has been conflated with GOP. Can you go back?
Yeah, I am right now. I was going to try to make it bigger. Go ahead, fam.
With GOP opposition to support for the Ukrainians, just defense of their national sovereignty. As such, it is a distraction at this time, and we withdraw the letter. So they're gloating about the fact that they voted for every single military package, literally completely leaving out that the money, the funds, the weapons go to the Azov battalion and other paramilitary fascists in the region. They completely gloated about how they're only going to want peace until a Ukrainian victory, completely ignoring the fact that Ukraine isn't going to have a victory. Ukraine wouldn't exist without the United States and NATO keeping it afloat. It's a carcass. It's not its own government. It's not its sovereign country. And so my whole thing with this is like any sort of anti-war movement that the left had is dead. I mean, right now they're more worried about looking and agreeing with Republicans than they are about actually doing everything they can to stop this shift that we have towards nuclear war. Because as Mark just said, and I asked that question for a reason, it seems like we're closer and closer to nuclear war, and we are not getting away from that. It seems like there's no stopping it. These are your progressives. These are the people that are supposed to be the ones that people voted for, right? Especially poor people, working class people voted for to say, hey, you guys are going to be the ones that stand up to people like Nancy Pelosi, people like Chuck Schumer. You're going to be the ones that don't go along with these people when they go with neocons, right? And now who is it? It's the Republicans. The Republicans have more voices in Congress that are saying, hey, we probably shouldn't do this. Not one, we're wasting a ton of money, and two, we might literally get into nuclear war. You have more Republicans saying something. You have people like Rand Paul saying something.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there's everything that is here that's left there. None of these people are your friends, but I mean, the progressive caucus and the worst part is that they're just trying to justify this as a good thing, using this virtue signal of we stand with the Ukrainian people. We're going to stand with Zelensky, completely ignoring the corruption in Ukraine, completely ignoring what went on the past almost 9 years in Donbass, completely ignoring the Azov battalion and the neo-Nazi regime. So that's, to me, like, it's just ridiculous at this point. I mean, it was never going to be any better than that, though, Pasta. A lot of people got their hopes up saying, oh, see, this works. No, this doesn't work. They don't work for you. You have to understand that. They literally are told what to do, like Mark said, whipped into shape by everybody else, like Pelosi.
I think it made them show their true colors. And I do agree with the fact that you should always continue to apply pressure and don't let them be comfortable. And they should be in their faces every day about this.
Yeah.
I didn't even talk about the whole Elizabeth Warren thing, and we'll get to that eventually. But the things that really stood out to me about that letter is that, number one, it was a lie because they said they wrote it months ago. Well, from all the pressure that's been going on, they updated that letter because that letter was written, had stuff in that letter talking about stuff that happened just recently. So they updated the letter, and to believe that it was released by some staffer by accident is just ridiculous. So don't give us this BS that it was released months ago. You're trying to find a way out of this, the pressure that's there to maybe look the whole illusion of the election to make it look legitimate by acting like you care what the voters care about. Mm-hmm. But you know, when Pramila says she's accepted responsibility, what responsibility are you accepting? There's no accountability. There's no punishment. There's not. So all you're doing is saying words. Well, I accept responsibility when you want to play the ignorance game, the act stupid. And the fact that you're going to act like that you can't stand with it because it's Republicans. I mean, that's where we're at. When we would start opening up the show about how they have people divided, that you can say that we can't be against nuclear war or the possibility of nuclear war because there's Republicans who are against nuclear war, because there's Republicans that wanted to fund this. And we've been for every single budget. We care about the Ukrainian people. It's ridiculous. And it was a milquetoast letter. It was a giant virtue signal because it doesn't say go negotiate a way out of this war. It says when Putin bends the knee to the West's needs.
Mhm.
It doesn't talk about our behavior or how we got involved. It doesn't talk about our role in 2014. It doesn't point the fact that we're funding a proxy war, that the CIA is involved. It's a bunch of bullshit. And they couldn't even be anti-war, fam, for 24 fucking hours. It's a joke.
They're a joke. I mean, anybody giving them the time of day just because they tweet something, anybody voting for them, anybody even remotely like dismissing this, right? It is an idiot at this point. Okay, it's an idiot. You have Thomas Massey on the right side of history and Bernie Sanders condemning their letter, guys. We're gonna show you that right now. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is
You
Bernard
got to give it up
Sanders.
to Thomas Massey, though. He won the day. Since they retracted their letter, he retracted his comment and his compliment about their retraction of their letter. Just after 24 hours, members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus withdrew their letter urging the president to seek a peaceful resolution to the war in Ukraine. At this point, I suppose it's in order for me to withdraw my statement of appreciation for their courage and the retracting of their letter. You got to give it up to Thomas Massey, but what if Thomas?
And that's
Massey,
being too kind.
Yeah, and there
He was being too kind.
Thank you for having the courage to push back against the narrative. We are long overdue for an honest national discussion about what a peaceful end to the Ukraine war looks like. Dude, fam, I get shit all the time for about let's look into this Libertarian Party. And once again, I'm not buying T-shirts or praising the party or going out there going, yay, yay, libertarians. But it's a compromise because once again, they've been out in front, people like Rand Paul, people like Thomas Massey, talking out against this war. The whole Mises caucus, the Ron Pauls, the Scott Hortons. And I don't even agree with Scott Horton's whole take about the fact that Putin should have done what he did. I believe Putin had every right to do what he had to do. I believe Putin had no choice. The Russian Federation had no choice. Okay? All right? But they're out there marching, and they're out there the ones going, okay, let's end this fucking war. And the progressives couldn't even be pro-war, fam, anti-war, excuse me, for 24 hours. And this is him. Here's Thomas Massey when it came out the gate. Thank you for having the courage to push back against the narrative. I mean, he was out there right away, fam, right away. And I'm saying, got to give some props up here.
The progressives are imperialists, guys. They're imperialists. They're literally an extension of the Democratic Party, and they're worse because they're used to pull people back into the Democratic Party. That's their role. That's all it is. They have zero other use. That literally, you have people like Ro Khanna in there, who's owned by the Silicon Valley,
big tech,
and big tech.
Yeah. They own that seat.
And yeah, and then you have, and then you have all of these people that vote in line with the Democratic Party. So what is the difference between AOC, Nancy Pelosi, and Mitch McConnell? Literally, there's really no difference. At the end of the day, when it comes to nuclear war, they're right there. And guess what? Nothing else matters, as that protester was yelling at Elizabeth Warren, right? If we die in a nuclear war. And again, we are so close to this, guys, that it's ridiculous. I like Mark, for a while, I've been saying no, it's no. But the West keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. And here we have Bernard Sanders. Bernard Sanders, the guy that so many of us put our hopes in 2015 and even on to 2020. In you know, hey, maybe this guy could actually usher in something that will allow people to make a change, as small as it may be, whatever. No, here he is. By the way, he got smeared by the Democratic Party for being a Putinist. He got WikiLeaks, Hillary Clinton's emails, talked about how to cheat Bernie Sanders, how to make him look like he was related to Russia. Bernie supporters were accused of being Putin propagandists in 2015 and 2016. This has been happening for a long time. This is why I don't give a damn about getting called a Russian propagandist at this point, because I've been called a Russian propagandist for 7 years. What's the difference now? I'm literally in Moscow. You don't have to believe me. I'm telling you what's going on. And Bernie Sanders said that the House progressives were wrong on Ukraine. If you just scroll down, this is what he said.
Fam, can you believe that Jack Posobiec and Bernie Sanders share the same position on Ukraine? Well, I don't even know. Jack Posobiec might have a better position on Ukraine than
I
Bernie.
think he actually has a better position than Bernard Sanders.
That's crazy. Just let go ahead, fam. Wait. Bill Kristol, and Bernie Sanders share the same position. David Frum and Bernie Sanders share the same position. Lindsey Graham and Bernie Sanders share the same position. Eye Patch McCain, who's Dan Crenshaw, share the same position on Ukraine, fam. Go ahead.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders said Tuesday that the Russian invasion of Ukraine, quote, has to be resisted. And the Congressional Progressive Caucus was right to withdraw a letter that urged President Biden to negotiate an end to the war with Russian President Vladimir Putin. I don't agree with that. Wait. I want you to read it in your Bernie voice. There you go.
Okay, let me read it in my Bernie voice. I was just about to make a thing. I don't agree with that. And I don't agree with it, apparently, Sanders told a semaphore in the phone interview. It was withdrawn today, so it becomes a non-issue. We are back to endless war, and that's what we need. Sanders, who is launching a multi-state midterm campaign swing to help Democrat in tough races, remain committed to supporting Ukraine from a major power invading and causing mass destruction that is Vladimir Putin. I agree with my good friend Chuck over here that we need to be involved. He dismissed the claim for some candidates and some protesters who have called progressive members of Congress warmongers over their votes to fund Ukraine's counteroffensive. No. They are not warmongers. They are simply standing up to Vladimir Putin. Democrats, warmongers, he said. When you have Putin breaking all kinds of international laws, unleashing an incredible, disgusting, and horrific level of destruction against the people of Ukraine, you want to call them warmongers? I think not. Fam.
Oh my God, guys. He wasn't in the beginning of his campaign in 2015. He was not echoing this rhetoric. This is his foreign policy advocates. This is him swallowing whatever the hell he's swallowing, the boot of the empire. He's not an independent. He's a Democrat. I don't care what his label is. He's a Democrat. He's a pro-war Democrat. What's the point of him being an independent if he's going to toe the same line that Democrats do? That not just all that warmongering people like Pelosi and Chuck the Schmuck and Elizabeth Warren, now all of these people, there's no difference between them. So what's the point of voting for them? What's the point of ever supporting these people ever again? What? They haven't given you shit. They won't even give you the student debt relief of $10,000, which is a joke. There's no reason to vote for these people anymore. First of all, we don't have fair elections, so there's a reason they're in there. Second of all, this is the NATO left. Yeah, the NATO left.
Deal with it.
Oh, God.
Squad. Deal with it. Bernie Sanders. Deal with it.
Everybody should get a refund. Everybody should get a refund for everything they've donated to the squad and Bernie Sanders right now. See if you can get a refund. I think, you know what? People always, the shit lib left, they're always like, why do you pay so much attention to progressives and AOC and the squad and Bernie? They try. They try. You know why? Because Republicans didn't promise shit. Republicans are Republicans. They didn't promise anything. Nobody put their hopes in Republicans. Everybody put their hopes in these people that would be different. They ran on this. So you know what? I think that the focus shouldn't be to go after Republicans or even after corporate Democrats. Go after these people. Go after the squad. Go after Bernie Sanders. Because you know what? They said that they would do this, that they would be different. Go after them, literally. And by the way, we need to start. People in the United States need to start protesting nuclear war, because that's where we're at. Nuclear war. Okay. I don't care. Nuclear war trumps everything else. I don't give a crap if someone's a boogaloo boy, a libertarian, this or that. It's nuclear war.
And to my Tulsi peeps out there who I've been arguing with lately, saying that she won't take an interview with us right now because it's a little bit too dangerous, because we'd ask her a little bit more nuanced questions about why she abandoned her post. I will still give credit where credit is due. She talked about this in Congress more than anybody. Mark had mentioned the doomsday clock, right? This is something Tulsi had talked about. This is something that Tulsi was sounding the alarms when the treaty was ending with Russia, as far as a nuclear treaty about what could be carried on planes and whatnot. And Mark kind of alluded to the fact that they want to use nuclear weapons on the ground now, short range, smaller nuclear weapons that they can use. So I will give credit where credit is due, but it's something we talked about for quite some time, fam, that a lot of people don't mention nuclear war. Ambassador Cohen, who was the ambassador of the United States to Russia for so long, he said the president's number one job should be and will always be keep us out of war with Russia. Nuclear holocaust is the term that Denzel Washington's character used in Crimson Tide. Our ICBMs cross each other in the air. It's not nuclear war. It's nuclear holocaust. Everything is gone. And we seem to be pushing that envelope day in and day out when it comes to the situation in the Ukraine. And some of the progressives we know in LA were the first to get out there with the I Stand with the Ukraine fucking march. It is sad. You need to wake up. Bernie Sanders, the squad, get microphones in front of their face. Why are you funding Nazis?
Moonwalk 689 said, we'll all be feeling the burn when the missiles start flying. And Lucky Burrito said, go after the people that actually promise you something. Exactly. Go after the people that promise you something.
Homegirl.
I mean, why would you go after the Republicans? They didn't promise you shit. It's I'm sorry, not even the Democrats, the progressives, the Democratic Socialists. My ass.
By the way, I'm looking. I don't know what I did with the thing. Fam, we were talking peaches the other day, and millions of peaches for me. The name of the bird, a combo couch bird that's a big fan of the combo couch, is Peaches.
Yes, it's Peaches. It's Lucky's bird.
Peaches loves the combo couch. So does Leo.
We love Peaches.
And guys, guess what? Bernie is in LA tomorrow. Bernie is in LA tomorrow, guys. Karen Bass.
You know what to do.
Yeah, by the way, AOC was here. She was out here campaigning for fucking Katie Porter. That's
oh my God.
Did the Pod Save America. They had some serious conversations, fam, about the fries. Oh my God, the fries from In-N-Out are so rated.
Can you pull that up? You know,
I will, but let's.
By the way,
good.
Go ahead.
I just say I wanted to replay this video again because I want us to comment on it. We let Mark comment on it, but I want to talk about Elizabeth Warren, the way she handled this. I also want you guys to pay attention to Ayanna Pressley. Steve and I had a little bit of a disagreement this morning. Not totally, but well, of course, because Steve is Steve. But Ayanna Pressley, I think there's a conscience growing inside of her. I don't know. I see her face, fam.
What?
Yeah, I see her face, and I'm like, I think she's starting to go, oh shit, this sucks. I did not bargain for this. I did not think this would happen. I have a feeling that she's starting to crack inside. Let's play this video one more time from Elizabeth Warren. You're obviously on Putin puppet if you complain about being hungry. Let's take a look at Elizabeth Warren one last time. Look at the way she handled this. And guys, it's disgusting because to me, I would think that she would have stopped and at least threw out a bullshit line. No, I am helping the Ukrainian people stand up against Putin's invasion. You are wrong. They just ignore.
They ignore that face again.
Up they are. Watch.
Senator, you have got to stop funding a Nazi-infested Ukrainian regime. You are bringing us to the brink of nuclear war. You have got those billions can be used for a lot of good things here in the U.S. Instead of funding Nazis in Ukraine, they're preparing a dirty bomb to detonate and blame on Russia. This is not why we're here. I am here to make sure that billions of lives are saved instead of getting into a nuclear war. You've asked me, I heard you. I will move toward the exit.
Yes,
that's right. No, nuclear war. Yes, I'm flying around too. And I don't want them to die in a nuclear war that my tax money is funding because the Congress and the Senate are funding Nazis in Ukraine. Do you want a nuclear war? A nuclear war will cancel your debt and your life. I have sent letters, I have sent emails, I have made calls to to these senators and congressmen. They refuse to respond. We are marching to nuclear war behind fools in political office. They have got to stop it. Nuclear war is the issue. Nuclear war. Consideration.
None of this matters. None of this matters if there's a nuclear war and we all die. In 2018, there was an evil.
Fam, sir, you're disturbing a deaf person who can't even hear you. Miguel, put that. Miguel, you won the fucking chat of the day. I'm surprised we didn't hear that. By the way, that person didn't have a disability that AOC fucking tried to use as cover. And then she went on to say what? The people there that were saying this stuff, the LaRouche people, their tinfoil hats, their conspiracy theorists. Then when the second time she went and got heckled, she said that these people were being misogynist, they were homophobes, they were people who were supporting the Republicans. Even there were people in the constituents she used that. And that was after 3 days it took her staffers to come up with that. And then she was getting screamed at by a bunch of other progressives. We know they were progressives because they were wearing masks outside. In fact, one of them took the mask down to speak. I think that's my boy. But anyways, it's like, what's her excuse going to be now? Elizabeth Warren, fam, didn't even address the man. Let him go on. They started doing the chant about student debt. Like that was the big issue, like these people. And then people coming over, sir, we're not here to speak to it today. What type of person are you when you're sitting there and you're being a complete cuck to power, complete stooge, little minion of the ruling class? And somebody's out there talking about nuclear annihilation. I mean, that's just one thing, fam. How about all these people that were talked about that Mark had mentioned that are dying, that are suffering as citizens in their cabinets eating pickled vegetables because they're getting bombed by Western weapons from people who are Nazis that hate them? I mean, we're not even talking about that. Your thoughts on this whole malarkey with your good friend Elizabeth Warren, please. And remember, be nice to women of color. Go ahead. You there, fam? Are you muted? You're muted, fam.
No wonder I was talking and you weren't listening.
I don't mute you, fam. You do that to yourself. And by the way,
no
sound difficulties today because I got the earpiece in. We worked on it the other day. We spent an hour after class, guys. So please, fam, give me your opinions about Pocahontas, your favorite.
Yeah. So the woman of color, Elizabeth, I was doing the snake sounds. Look, we need more of this times 1,000. I mean, on Elizabeth Warren, on Ayanna Pressley, on everybody that is supposed to be a progressive more than anything, but on everybody in general. But like, you know what I hate the most about this is that they turn it around and make these people the villain. These people that are addressing actual issues, not just virtue signals or about how we're going to come together and we're going to put women forward and we're going to beat Republicans. No, it's like, he's like, hey, nothing matters. We're all going to die in nuclear war. Why are you still funding these Nazis in Ukraine? Flat out, straight up. That's it. Like, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. They're putting off all this fluff about Ukraine and sovereignty and a big country like Russia coming after a little country, completely ignoring the history. Forget that. Literally nuclear war. And they're the evil ones. Sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave. For what? For telling the truth? You're going to ask me to leave for telling the truth because you don't want to hear it, because this doesn't go for your narrative. And the other brainwashed idiots are like, it's just, that's what irritates me, Pasta, is that this is where we're at.
Yeah, this is where we're at.
This is where we're at. It's like a couple people, right, shouting, and then it's like everybody else is a moron and it's brainwashed.
Yeah.
Like that is what to me scares me the most, because the people of the United States are the ones that can stop this. I'm telling you right now. You are the ones that can stop this. You are in the belly of the beast. The only ones, guys. Everybody else can interject and say all this stuff. But guys, like, this is your government, right? They're not your government anymore, but they're your government. What are you going to do to stop it? I mean, this has to be, but it's not on everybody's radar. People are still like trying to pretend everything's okay. It's not. I don't know what can be done. But as Mark said, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's inevitable at this point.
Fam, I put it up there a little. I've been working the banners hard today. I hope you've noticed it and hope that I've been doing a good job on them. I'm afraid to
You
misspell
did.
something, but here it is. Elizabeth Warren is pro-war too.
I did notice it, fam, and I added a couple things. This is AOC. Now, I have to disagree with AOC here, and not on just her stupidity, but I actually like In-N-Out. And yeah, the fries are shitty. Okay, but I think you and AOC agree on this one, fam. The fries are shitty, but if you ask for them, well done, animal style, it changes. And I think
Steve was the first to mention that. Steve, he says if he's going to crack on fast food, it is In-N-Out. Now, there's a place. It's a plant-based vegan fast food restaurant that kind of like it's kind of like taking ideas from all your favorite places. So there's something called the Big Zack, fam, which is like their version of the Big Mac. And they also have animal fries there, vegan style as well. So it's all vegan. You get vegan shakes and stuff. So the other day I had a Big Zack, and I also had the animal style fries that they had over there. Much better than the In-N-Out fries. Of course, it was fake cheese and no mayonnaise in their sauce, but it was definitely well worth it. They had the grilled onions and all that other stuff on there, but stuff. And this is just like Pod Save America, right? Like this,
it's the biggest liberal podcast in the world, like in the country.
Shit-libs.
Yeah, it's shit-libs.
Yeah.
You want to play it, but I just wanted to read Edgar's
Go ahead, please.
little thing. What part of LA is Bernie coming? Is anybody else interested in going to scream at Bernie, Nazi supporter? So if anybody knows where that is, put it in the chat.
Bernie supports Nazis. Somebody
let everybody go.
Bernie supports Nazis. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Let everybody know. Where is it?
Yeah, wherever it's at, let us know in the chat. Somebody put it up there. Friendly Brilliant. Where's she at? Where's our girl? Where's my homegirl? Get it up in there. Well, I'm going to do it real quick. I'm going to mute us up. Oh, just so long as it doesn't use canola oil. Okay. Guys, we're going to mute this up really quick. This is AOC having serious conversations on Pod Save America.
And while you're out here, will you be going to In-N-Out? And is there anything you can do at a federal level to take on the quality of the fries?
Thank you for saying this.
People need to talk about it.
Thank you for saying this, because every time I come out here, everyone's like, oh my God, In-N-Out, In-N-Out. And I'm like, my controversial non-political opinion is that it's overrated.
Yes.
But it's because like I'm a big fry person.
What are they doing?
What is this dry fry thing going on here?
There's other fries nearby they can sample and learn.
I agree.
And then the people say, order them well done. I got to do a special order. Make them right.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, you said it all. So
that's it. And while you're out here,
she's tackling the serious issues, fam. I mean, you think that after she just went through and you're like, listen, you've just been heckled 3 times. Most people are pointing out the fact that you are supporting this Ukraine proxy war that you say is not a war and that you're fighting Putin. Is there any legitimacy as far as the people's concern about you coming to some sort of agreement with the Progressive Caucus to force the rest of the Democrats to end this war? Nothing like that whatsoever. It's like, how are the fries? You know, I'm a cuck podcast that started under Obama. I mean, nothing. We are in a completely controlled situation. The mainstream media is just controlled propaganda. You're going to get no pushback, no nothing. It's up to us. Guys, Bernie Sanders is here. Bernie, why are you supporting Nazis? And as soon as he says, well, Putin is doing this, well, what about, was the United States involved in 2014 in overturning their election, in overturning their government? Do you believe that in 2014, we cooed them and supported a Fugazi dictator? Why are we doing this in the backyard? What about NATO promising to not go up to Putin's borders? Guys, it's going to be easy. He will be left first of all, he's going to try to sidestep it and not answer it the same way he tried to sidestep the Julian Assange question. But guys, apply the pressure now. Right here's a good sign. Feel the Bernie Nazi. Feel the burn, Nazi. He's
Oh my
openly
God.
supporting. He said that the House congressional members were right to retract their letter to end the war. That is fucking madness, ladies and gentlemen. Bandera Bernie Bandera. Come on, guys, get the signs out there.
Oh my God.
Be here, and we're going to be consistent, right? We're going to throw balls and strikes. It doesn't make a difference who's up at bat. It doesn't make a difference what jersey they are, what teams. A strike is a strike, and a ball is a ball. That means you cannot be hypocritical. That you have to call it like you see it. And if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to apply all this pressure, I'm going to get so much shit from Tulsi people for calling her out. Okay, all I'm doing is following through with what we need to be doing. That's being consistent. People are going to step out of line. Influencers, politicians, lawmakers, you call them out. Like I said,
Call those motherfuckers out.
The one
Call
thing
them
I
out.
never let myself down for is not being ready to go at Debbie Wasserman Schultz when she was there. And I had in my mind, I was going to ask her about Venezuela. Be ready. Be a citizen journalist. You hear a politician's going to show up there, look at them, research them, look at their votes, ask them why, question them. Why are you pro-war? Are you not concerned that a nuclear holocaust can kill us all? Why are you supporting the Ukrainians with this Fugazi government? Because of Vladimir Putin. Did we not interfere in their elections in 2014 and put our own person in there? Yes, we did. Well, how can we then just go ahead and support a puppet government? Just be ready. Be ready. He's here. Go get him. Go
get him.
Get Bernie Sanders.
He is not above criticism just because he's Bernie Sanders. Not at this point. Not at the point we're at. Shout out to Socialist MMA for in the chat. RBJ.
It was right about that one point of his letter. Now, listen, I don't have pipe dreams and think anything's going to change about this. They got their playbook. They got their plan. They're going to shelter themselves. They're going to put themselves in echo chambers. They're not going to put themselves in front of unfriendly media. So what's up, Daryl? They're going to put themselves. We know this. We've infiltrated a room before. We can say the look on their faces when Andrew Yang got a question from Fee, when Kamala Harris got a question from me, when Cory Booker got a question from Lauren Steiner about Bolivia. You could tell they are going to shield themselves. For crying out loud, we'd even go over the Fetterman freaking whole goddamn thing, right? Fetterman saying that China, Nick put this up yesterday, and I immediately went and grabbed it. Do you want me to grab about what Fetterman said about China? The Democratic Party?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to grab really quickly because this is just, oh my God. I mean,
they either want to go to war with China or Russia. And guys, they can't afford it. They can barely go to war with Russia right now. How are they going to try to go to war with China over Taiwan? Taiwan is Ukraine for China. Like, this is what they're going to use, right? They're using the same thing. And we're all going to die in the process. This is the problem here is people think, these idiots think that they can have targeted nuclear strikes. No. Send them to the front lines. How about the rest of us go get on a rocket or get on a bunker? Because there's no such thing at this point. Okay. There's a reason why these drills are happening now more often with certainty. There's a reason why, Russia was telling everybody and even Ukraine to get out of these certain regions because things are flaring up. And in the next few weeks, things are going to continue to increase. And I'm telling you right now, being all the way in Moscow, we are heading towards the point of no return in this conflict, period.
The thing that's crazy that we have to realize right now that Fetterman is not really thinking for himself. Fetterman should not be in this whole thing. Since that stroke, he's been very, very slow, and I feel almost bad for him at this time. And I don't care if you call me an ableist, all right? Whatever box he's checking off, like the Rishi Sunak stuff that we're not going to get to today. He's the first brown president, prime minister of Britain. That's shit when the guy is
Goldman Sachs.
Carried out CBDCs, but once again, you guys don't care about QR codes and whatnot, and that's your blind side. A lot of leftist friends I have, they have that blind side too as well. There's no need for QR codes for human beings other than to track a person. to make sure you have complete control over them. Your expediency or your comfortability that you can buy everything with the touch of your finger or whatever, that can also be used against you in a dangerous way, and you need to realize that. This thing coming up right now, Fetterman, he also said he was pro-fracking yesterday too, fam. Like, he's going to believe in fracking. He is in Pennsylvania, but this is
They
the
picked
party
like the
line.
person that makes Dr. Oz look like the better.
This is the party line now for them, fam. They are now the pro-woke, the woke pro-war left, fam, ladies and gentlemen. Take it in. This is Fetterman talking about China is not our friend. Where you at, fam? I lost you.
Mr. Fetterman, what do you believe is the greatest foreign threat to the United States of America? You have 60 seconds.
I believe, is right now is China. I believe China is not our friend. And I believe that we can't be able to push back, and we need to stand against China. And I believe that Dr. Oz has chosen to manufacture all of his merchandise on his name on it in China. Which one of us on this stage is going to stand up against and stand firm against China? And I believe that's chosen to, and we need to stand against. And I believe that we can't be able to push back, and we need to stand against China. And I believe that Dr. Oz has chosen to manufacture all of his merchandise on his name on it in China. Which one of us on this stage is going to stand up against and stand firm against China? And I believe that's our single biggest issue right now, to make sure that we address China and make sure that we know that it's not our friend.
Mr. Fetterman.
Okay. Where do we begin with that?
Wow.
I don't know where to begin. I feel so bad.
I
feel bad. I feel bad.
Because he's just being wheeled out there because he's going to, once again, he's just showing you, and he's all for fracking. He's just a cuck minion of the Democratic Party. And they don't give a shit whether you can speak or not. They don't care. They'll will your freaking ass out there. But the fact that this is now repeating the line, this is the party line. So in other words, Jack Posobiec and Fetterman have the same position on China, right? Right. Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon have the same position on China as Ilhan Omar and AOC. They are for war. They are pro-war China. Even if the fact fan he used it as a political hit. Oh, my opponent over here is getting all his hats and everything made in China, all his shirts, all his campaign stuff. Mine says made in the USA. Even if you're using it as a political hit, it's so irresponsible with a country that has nuclear weapons that you're now saber rattling with. This is the woke left, fam.
Dems ran a Republican with a stroke for their party.
Wow.
Fetterman should have never agreed to that debate.
Why?
Let's see.
Because, I mean, that's the whole thing. At least he did that.
Jesus Christ. Did I miss a contest on how many times? Oops.
All right. Go ahead. You go first.
Somebody can say China in a minute.
China.
China.
Look at this one, fam, right here. I have an 8-year-old that can outperform that minion. Steve put up yesterday, please, God forgive me, Jesus forgive me for making fun of a stroke victim tomorrow. Because we knew we were going to hear it. We knew we were going to hear it.
Yeah.
Anything else to say, fam? Because we got to get out of here. It's been 2 hours and 45 minutes. I already did a 3-hour show today. I don't need to do 2 3-hour shows. I'm pretty much right there.
Oh, I don't know. I was at work all day. It's like 12:04 a.m. for me. Okay, guys. No, maybe we'll do something tomorrow as a surprise. But thank you guys for hanging on out here.
Fetterman should take another booster because it can't sound any worse. Oh my God.
The booster stuff. Did y'all see Biden take his booster?
Yeah.
His booster. We'll see. We'll see.
He talked about it again today. He goes, almost everybody, virtually everyone who's going to die is not going to be up to date on their vaccines. So some people will have 2 boosters, not the 3rd one, and they'll die. And a lot of people will have 2 shots, not the boosters. But I mean, it's a lie. They're still going on with this stuff, guys. Listen, we're talking all this Ukraine stuff. We have all these people on talk about what's going on in Ukraine. COVID protocols haven't ended. They're still going on behind the scenes. They're still trying to use medical emergencies to interact draconian laws. That is still going on and hasn't stopped, and it will not stop. So there's a lot to still go on to talk about that.
Well, guys, that's it for today. A
I'm gonna read
long ass
Super Rays real
show.
quick.
Huh?
Super Rays. I got some Super Rays. So
Oh,
we
you
had,
do? Okay.
yes, we had AREM who did the gave us the first Super Ray that started us off really nicely. Thank you so much, AREM. As always, you are always appreciated on the couch. Sloboda's now a couch crasher, as he calls himself. He's crashing on the couch. Hugely fantastical. Thank you. When the 101 Airborne creates this fake phony demonstration combat against Russia, I don't see them using Mr. Kinzel. Why is that? Because they're just there. Once again, I think they want to be drawn into the war. I don't know if the United States is ready to do something, if this is some testing ground, but it's quite scary. Deborah Wilson. Oh, Deborah. Remember we met Deborah out in the event for the comrades. Was the first time we met her. Deborah also came out, met Steve and I at Defeat the Mandates LA. Thank you so much. This coverage is beautiful. What is Edgar saying? And that was Deborah Wilson. Thank you so much.
Amazon still requires masks for employees.
Fuck off. Chris Foster, excellent work as always. Thank you, Chris Foster. We appreciate the super contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Dr. Dragon, fantastic report, on point. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dragon. You guys don't know how much this means to us. You guys are helping us. This is the end of the month. This gratuities, they mean so much to us right now. AREM says, thanks again.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate you.
What did TNT say, fam?
Thank you, Fiam Pasta, always bringing the truth.
Aw. Fam, they love us. They love us a lot. I think that's it.
We love you guys back.
One more might have came in. I'm trying to look to see right now if it is something else. I don't know if it's the last. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
Warren.
That was AREM. Oh, what a Warren.
Uncle Bulla. Tio Warren.
You're the best, Warren. We love you. I think that's all the Super Rays, guys. Remember, if you get a chance, go to our givesendgo.com. We still have that up because we still are recovering funds from that Brazil trip. Go to givesendgo.com. The Combo Couch Brazil. We can really use the help. We also have a Patreon, our Rockfin. If you want to become a member, please go on over there. You can get it for $9.99 a month. What's that, fam?
There is a picture I wanted to show, fam. It's the very last thing. I just wanted to show this picture on the spirit of Halloween for everybody.
Where do you have it? Do you have it in the doc?
It's the very the very last of the section before the Rishi section that we didn't get to.
All right, fam. You're making me work right now because I don't know exactly where.
Oh my God, guys!
Guardian one, is it?
It's this one right here.
Got it.
This one, yeah.
This
Just
one?
want people to see this. Yes.
Fam.
What?
Fam.
I think it's funny.
I know you think. Why is
okay?
It,
so
now look at this.
I've already decided, guys. This is going to be my side project. Is going to be a podcast, an actual podcast on serial killers, the supernatural, and this is why, because I already talked to Misty about this.
You're just too much.
I love the true crime stuff, but okay, so
you and Misty love your true crime stuff. Yeah.
too. So okay, happy almost Halloween, and the meme says, "I swear, all serial killers have the same glasses." And you got Dahmer, you got everybody else. I forget who's who right now. I'm like dead tired.
George Bundy down to the left.
I think it's Ted Bundy, not
Ted Bundy.
George Bundy.
Yeah, George Bundy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Who's the female?
And it was Hillary Clinton.
You got
it's her birthday still.
Yeah.
Your time. Did you?
Yeah, look who's wearing Uh-oh.
Somebody yeah. I love all the comments.
Karl Rove. Bill Gates and Fauci. Look at that. You gotta get that.
There's
one.
Bernard Sanders somewhere in there.
That's Gates. Is that Fauci?
Who's that?
Oh,
hey, that's not the same.
Oh shit, fam. Somebody got you there. See what happens?
That's what happens.
Is that Kissinger? Yeah. There they are, fam. The shit right here is why I suicide people.
So it was her birthday. I hope you wish her a very happy birthday. Yeah. Anyway, I will refrain from saying what I want to say, just in case I didn't kill myself. There's Klaus.
There's Klaus.
There's our guy.
There's Klaus. There's Klaus, fam. That's it, fam. I had enough of this.
That's it for today, guys.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
We had a long day, guys. Thank you so much. I think we caught everybody on the Super Rays. I can't. Oh, another one came in. Fam, they're keeping us here longer with these Super Rays. Rob McMurtry, thank you so much for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Dr.
It's Hillary's birthday, eh?
Thank you, guys. Whose birthday, fam?
It's Hillary Clinton's birthday on October 26th.
Well, we're getting out of here, guys. So that's it for today, guys. We'll see you back maybe tomorrow. If not tomorrow, we'll be back on Friday for sure. Matt Ehret will be in the house. Matt Ehret was on the morning show just the other day. We'll get some more questions, fam. I figure we can ask him a little bit more about the government itself and communism inside of China, but he gives a good explanation. They were really trying to make this whole situation in which they removed this ex-president from the council, like a Saddam Hussein thing. If you ever read the Epoch Times, of course, they're removing Xi Jinping is removing his competition. Meanwhile, like they didn't want to put him up there because the guy's going a little senile. Put him up there. He was further embarrassing himself and the Chinese party. So they removed him. They said, hey, man, go to the back where there's some hot tea, some Jell-O, and some snacks. But yet the Epoch Times is trying to make it like Xi Jinping is removing his adversaries, his competition, like Saddam did. It was a lie. So Matt Ehret will be on with us this Friday to talk a little bit more about that. Maybe a show tomorrow. I'll also be on the Shanda show tomorrow, Trailer Park Pundit, following the morning show. The morning show, we got some guests on. So it's going to be a fun week still. And on Friday, fam, I fly out to Orlando, O-Town, and I'm going to be talking in an election integrity event on Saturday. I don't know how much I'll be talking, where I'll be talking, but I'll have a lot of stuff to go on. I'll be talking about the 6 principles of elections. I'll be talking about the Brazilian elections, of course, giving them some light and some information about what's going on, because the both the left and right media has just been ridiculous on this. You know, it's just so one-sided. You guys are lucky to have the Convo Couch to go and do these things, because we can give you the honest reporting of what we see and understand on the ground, because we don't ignore the negatives of Lula. We don't ignore the negatives of Bolsonaro. We call it like we do see it, and we explain what's going on. So I will be talking about that. And as always, fam, I'll always use my doorway into the conservative MAGA movement to talk about foreign policy and what really causes migration. I love having these conversations after, when we go after, we sit down, we eat. I make some work there. I make some leeway with some hedgeway.
Fam, you do the Latino Italian goodbye. How many times have we said goodbye now? You still talking?
It's the 20-minute Italian goodbye.
You gotta make me sound Italian now,
fam. Please don't do it. Your Marissa Tomei is just
bada bing, bada boom. You know.
All right. With that being
guys.
said, ladies and gentlemen, there's no more tips there, fam. So we're out. I can't say anymore. Guys, thank you for love today. Go over to the Rockfin, become a yearly subscriber for a special price. We do have a Patreon. There's all the ways you can help us out. Our gifts and go. We love you. For Pasta Jardula.
Jesus Christ, worse than my grandmother. From Fiorella.
Oh, I forgot one more thing I had to tell you.
No, goodbye. We
Combo
love you guys.
out.
You were worse than my grandmother. Jesus Christ. Combo out.
Come on, dude.